After the man went to the hospital and had his 2 testicles removed, he realized the surgery was a mistake, and the white cells had already spread throughout his body. But upon learning this, instead of getting angry, he clutched the amulet his wife had left him and burst into laughter, because the man felt that only this kind of death, ending his bloodline, could comfort the deceased soul of his wife. However, when he opened his eyes again, what you saw was the old house's window, with a dust-covered double happiness paper cut stuck to it. Then you quickly searched all over inside and out, only to see a naked Lin Qingxue curled up on the dirt bed. At this moment, her large eyes revealed a dead silence, and her originally flawless, fair skin was covered with crisscrossing bruises. Seeing the woman who had haunted your dreams for most of your life once again, you immediately became emotional, and stepped forward to pull her into your arms. There was so much guilt and longing. Words you wanted to say were stuck in your throat at this moment, and you began to cry bitterly. In your past life, you schemed to make Lin Qingxue fall into the reservoir, causing the whole village to see her disheveled state when you rescued her. For the sake of her reputation, she was forced to marry you. But ever since Lin Qingxue entered your home, she had enjoyed a single good day. Under your endless domestic abuse, she jumped into the reservoir with your child to commit suicide. It was until your brother-in-law pulled the bodies of the mother and daughter from the river that you finally woke up to reality. After that, although you took advantage of the era's opportunities and earned more wealth than you could spend in 10 lifetimes, the woman who used her life to teach you to grow up was already gone. Just as you were immersed in the joy of being reborn, a miserable cry rang out, "Ah! Don't hold me!" At this moment, looking at Lin Qingxue trembling all over, you finally remembered this incident. Lin Qingxue had borrowed money from her maiden home to buy baby cereal, but you snatched it away to buy alcohol and got drunk. After coming home, you brutally tortured her in bed. Thinking of this, you raised your hand and ruthlessly slapped yourself across the face more than a dozen times. Soon, blood trickled down from the corner of your mouth. Lin Qingxue quietly watched your actions and couldn't help but give a sarcastic smile. She could no longer remember how many times this had happened. After all, every time you sobered up, you would kneel and beg for forgiveness. But not even 2 days later, your fists and kicks would fall on Lin Qingxue's body again. She could humiliatingly endure your torture in bed, but she couldn't bear the baby starving with nothing to eat. The weak crying of the baby brought a trace of life back into Lin Qingxue's beautiful phoenix eyes. She frantically threw on some clothes and picked up her daughter. However, because Lin Qingxue was chronically malnourished, the little one couldn't suck any milk and started wailing loudly again. Your daughter's crying also jolted you awake. You immediately got out of bed, picked up your clothes from the floor and said, "Wife, wait for me. I'll go get something for our little girl to eat right now." Saying that, you took long strides toward the village's small shop. You ran to old Huang at the shop, who bared his large yellow teeth and asked when he saw you, "What do you want this time?" "Uncle wants some baby cereal on my tab. As for the money, I'll give it to you tomorrow." Hearing this, old Huang realized you wanted to buy on credit again. He sized up the red, swollen slap marks on your face, but didn't say a word. He took a bag of baby cereal from the shelf for you. You thanked him gratefully and hurried back home. Entering the house, seeing that your wife was still exactly as she was when you left, your heart couldn't help but ache fiercely again. "Wifey, I brought the baby cereal back." Hearing your words, Lin Qingxue immediately became vigilant. Her pale little face was full of terror. "I'm warning you, don't touch my daughter. Otherwise, I curse you. May the Zhao family bloodline end." Seeing this scene, you froze in place. You vaguely remembered that there was indeed such an incident. Originally, you wanted to sell your daughter to a couple in town for money to buy alcohol. What kind of dastardly things had you done? No wonder you died of testicular cancer in your past life. You totally deserved it. So you placed the baby cereal in your hand on the shabby small bed. "I swear I will never sell on you. I'll go to town tomorrow to find work." After saying that, you turned and stepped outside, viciously slapping yourself across the face several times. If you remembered correctly, it was this very month that Lin Qingxue jumped into the reservoir with your daughter. Just thinking about it made you shudder, seeing that it was getting late, and the house was out of food. 20 minutes later, you arrived at the foot of the back mountain. You pulled out the elastic band from your shorts and made a slingshot. Smack! You fired a stone, and a turtle dove flapped its wings and flew up. In your past life, after getting rich, you fell in love with shooting. You also played around with a slingshot for a while back then. Squatting in the grass, it took you half a day to finally catch a pheasant with a net, and you shot a few more turtle doves with the slingshot. The turtle doves were very small. All 4 combined weighed no more than a pound or 2. The pheasant, however, weighed over 5 pounds, and was quite plump. You tied these things up with vine, hung them on a branch, and just as you were about to carry them home, you suddenly felt the weight lift off your back. The catch was gone. You immediately broke out in a cold sweat, thinking you had encountered a ghost. Suddenly you saw the amulet hanging around your neck flash with light. This was the very item your wife kept close to her in your past life. It wasn't made of jade, nor was it plastic. She only took it off when she jumped into the river to end her life, leaving it by the reservoir. When you looked closer, the amulet's light had vanished, so you couldn't help but reach out to touch it. The next second, you entered a spatial dimension. Just looking at its size, it wasn't even as large as your hospital room. After experimenting a few times, you finally understood. Holding the amulet allowed you to enter, and simply thinking about exiting would bring you out. With this golden cheat, you could make a comeback in this world. On the way home, you noticed many households were already using electricity, yet your own home was still lit by a sheet fat lamp. The natural disasters and the bitterest years had all passed, but you still managed to live. From hand to mouth, you carried your things straight into the kitchen. After the sky had completely darkened, you carried a large bowl of turtle dove soup into the main rooms. Time to eat. I made some turtle dove soup to help you produce milk. Only after you called out 3 times did Lin Qingxue slowly walk out from the inner room. Seeing the large bowl of turtle dove soup on the table, she was in no rush to approach. She just stood there, her eyes full of resentment. At this moment, seeing your wife covered in patches and worn clothes, a wave of sorrow washed over your heart again. In this era of material scarcity, Lin Qingxue's beauty stood out exceptionally. But you were such a scumbag. You won her over but never cherished her. Seeing her full of wariness now, although you longed to sit down with her and share a meal at the same table, you also knew that, if you stayed here, she definitely wouldn't touch her chopsticks. Bill, go eat in the kitchen. After saying that, you turned around and walked out. Meanwhile stood frozen in place, staring at the large bowl full of turtle dove meat soup. A sense of unreality welled up in her. Was she dreaming? Or was this a last meal in the past? Whenever there was a bite to eat, you would stuff yourself first, while she could only drink the dishwater. So even though her stomach was rumbling right now, Lin Qingxue didn't dare to take a bite easily. It wasn't until she walked out the door and saw you squatting under the window drinking soup, with a large pheasant hanging by the kitchen door, guessing that you must have gone up the mountain to hunt for wild game. That Lin Qingxue finally turned around, went back to the main room, picked up the bowl and began to eat. After finishing the meal, under your wife's vigilant gaze, you took it upon yourself to wash the dishes. You used to be such a lazy bum. This might be the first time you seriously did household chores in this home. After finishing these tasks, thinking about the bastardly things you did during the day, you boiled another pot of hot water and brought it into the room saying, "Ching ching, wipe your body with this water." After saying that, you put down the basin, turned around, and hurried away. After sitting at the door for a long time, the faint sound of splashing water came from the room. Meanwhile, you looked up at the starry sky, planning to find a way to make money tomorrow, to improve the family situation as soon as possible. It was now autumn turning into winter, with -20-degree temperatures cold enough to freeze dripping water. Your wife and child both needed new padded coats. Otherwise, they wouldn't survive this winter. After hearing the water stop, you finally looked up and walked into the room. Seeing you suddenly appear, Lin Qingxue was so scared that she turned sideways and repeatedly backed away. Don't come over. Seeing this scene, you cursed yourself for being such an animal in the past, knowing full well her trauma couldn't be undone so quickly. So you said in a gentle tone, Qingxue, honey, I just came in to take the water out." After speaking, you picked up the water from the floor and walked outside. Lin Qingxue ignored you, and you saw her quickly get dressed as soon as you stepped out. In the yard, using the hot water your wife had used, you gave yourself a quick wash. After all, to catch those turtle dove, you had laid in the grass for a long time. After washing, you sat down on the threshold, recalling your experiences from your past life. There was a time when a few outsider always wanted to go into the mountains to forage. Afraid of getting lost, they found you, who was idling around, to guide them at that time. You just thought these city folks had eaten too much and had nothing better to do, but having seen them do it a lot, you learned how to harvest those wild goods. Now you could completely dig them up to sell. Thinking of this, you instantly became energized. You made a torch and prepared some amateur tools, then shouted into the house, "Ching ching, lock the door. I'm going out for a bit." You were gone for the whole night and didn't get home until 4 a.m. Speaking of which, you were quite lucky. On your way down the mountain, you unexpectedly found a civet cat. Then pulled a few unweaned baby civet cats. Returning home, you quickly processed them properly. Then, after leaving one in the kitchen, you carried 2 baskets to the town, as today was a market gathering. You found a crowded spot and took the civet cat meat and pelts out of the basket. "Young man, these are some nice mountain goods. You originally thought if you couldn't sell them, you'd take them back, stew them in a pot, and share them with your brothers and sister." Unexpectedly, just after setting up your goods, someone asked about the price of the civet cat meat. An old man and an old lady, seeing that you were a dark-tanned young man who looked like a Highlander and considering the affordable price, asked for 2 in one breath. Eating pork required meat coupons, so these mountain goods were the only options left. They were going to take it back to give their grandson a treat before leaving. The old lady tugged at the old man's clothes to signal it, and they bought all the civet cat pelts as well, saying they would make gloves for their grandson. Just like that, in less than 2 hours, all the civet cats were completely sold out. Afterward, you took the valuable herb you foraged yesterday to a long-established pharmacy in town. When you took it out, the eyes of the old man wearing thick glasses went wide. He carefully took the valuable herb, examined it closely, and then stretched out his hand to indicate a price. "Little brother, this price." Seeing the price he offered, you frowned slightly. This guy was trying to scam you, thinking you were just a mountain hillbilly. So you reached out to take your item back. Seeing this, the old man stopped you. He then stroked his goatee, comforting you. "Little brother, if you're not satisfied with the price, we can always negotiate, right? 6 tin bills, I'd go any higher." Although you had accidentally stepped on and broken this valuable herb, its true value was far more than this price. But who told you to be in such a desperate need of money? Your wife and child were still starving at home. After pondering for a moment, you decided to sell it. Then you went to buy meat and flour, visiting 2 supply cooperatives to buy milk powder, a rarity in this era. Right before heading back, you thought of your wife and the patched old clothes she wore yesterday. So you walked into the town's only small state-run department store. On the way back, you took a detour to find an old hunter in his 70s. You gave him a pile of food and managed to trade for his highly treasured shotgun. Eating meat requires Christian coupons. To achieve meat freedom, you still need to do it yourself. Approaching home, you finally noticed Lin Qingxue carrying the baby while working in the fields. When your eldest brother, Zhao Zhenguo, saw you coming over, he immediately flew into a rage. Where the hell did you wander off to? Leaving your wife to work in the fields by herself. Looking at your eldest brother in front of you, you felt a lump in your throat. I went to town to work and bought some meat and flour on the way back. Bring sister-in-law and the kids to our house for dinner tonight. Hearing this, your eldest brother looked you up and down with suspicion, looking at the mud spots on your pants and the fully loaded baskets. He said, your sister-in-law just steamed a pot of cornmeal buns. Let your wife take a few back later. We won't go over. Just treat her well from now on. You didn't say anything more. Nodding, you carried your things and went home. If you want to win over your wife, you must first win over her stomach. So you started getting busy in the kitchen. By the time it was almost dark, Lin Qingxue returned clutching a few cornmeal buns. But as soon as she walked into the yard, she smelled the aroma of meat from the kitchen. She hurriedly approached the kitchen door and saw you standing in front of the simple stove, busily working. Having worked all day, Lin Qingxue was already starving. After putting away the cornmeal buns, she went into the bedroom and placed the sleeping baby on the small bed. But as soon as she turned her head, she saw a can of milk powder on the table. Blood instantly rushed to Lin Qingxue's head. She ran into the kitchen and slapped you hard across the face. Did you go force my mom to give you money again? How can you be such a bastard? When your wife suddenly brought this up, you slowly remembered that you, this scumbag, had indeed threatened your mother-in-law with a knife for money before. So you hurriedly denied it, saying, I didn't take her money. I earned it all today. Saying that, you hurriedly reached toward your crotch. Seeing this, Lin Qingxue grew even angrier. What time is it? And you're still thinking about that. With that, she stepped forward and slapped you again, being slapped twice in a row. Left you not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Seeing that Lin Qingxue had no intention of stopping, you quickly pulled out the 5 10-yuan notes from your crotch pocket. Wife, this is the money I earned today. Take it. Seeing the 10-yuan notes shoved into her hands, Lin Qingxue felt the world spinning around her. Seeing your wife about to fall, you reached out to support her, but your hands were fiercely swatted away. She simply couldn't believe that a lazy loafer like you could earn so much money in a single day. What had he been doing outside? Some shady illegal business. What was she going to do? This life was truly impossible to live. Seeing that Lin Qingxue didn't believe your words at all, you almost fell to your knees before her. I went up the mountain last night and picked some wild Dendrobium. I also happened to catch a civet cat, and I traded those things for 6 10-yuan notes. I spent 1 note on food, and this is what's left. Hearing the word Dendrobium, Lin Qi's regained some focus. If there's no ginseng, how could there be Dendrobium? That thing has high medicinal value and can be sold for money, but it grows deep in the mountains and is very hard to find. Not to mention it was pitch black, but thinking about it carefully, there were indeed bloodstains by the well when she got up in the morning, and civet cat meat was stewing in the pot. Could it be that she had truly wronged him? But how did he know what Dendrobium looks like? Under Lin Qingxue's gaze, you raised your right hand and swore, I really didn't do anything bad. Otherwise may I die childless. Seeing your wife's breathing calm down a bit, and her eyes becoming less fierce, you sighed in relief. Qingxue quickly put the money away. I'm going to bring some meat to my eldest brother's family, so they can have a taste too. Although the money would be safer hidden in the spatial dimension, handing over your earnings to your wife meant handing over the power of the household. Then you picked up a plate of stir-fried civet cat meat and the stewed carp and tofu soup, placing them on the table in the main room. Immediately after, you returned to the kitchen, filled a bowl to the brim with meat, and headed towards your eldest brother's house. On the way, you also paid off the money you owed Old Wang for the baby food and your previous alcohol tabs. Meanwhile, Lin Qingxue looked at the 10-yuan notes in her hand and hurried back into the room. In the over 2 years since she married you, you had always been the one extorting money from her. This was the very first time you had willingly handed money over, so she divided the money into 5 portions and hid them separately. Just as she finished, hearing steady footsteps coming from outside, she walked out of the room. Looking at the steaming dish and soup on the table, she was in a slight daze. She then went to the kitchen and glanced at the flour bin. It was more than half full, and the oil jar was full too. There was even a 10-pound piece of pork belly hanging from the beam. Had he really changed? At this moment, Lin Qingxue couldn't be sure. A leopard can't change its spots. Seeing Lin Qing sit down, you added a wild pheasant leg to her bowl. It'll go up the mountain first thing tomorrow morning. I need to take advantage of the time before winter arrives, and quickly search all the places where Dendrobium can be dug up. After all, this was currently the fastest way to make money. Once the national economy opened up, you could use the money to invest. Nothing else mattered. Hearing your words, Lin Qingxue froze for a moment, nodded, and said nothing. Even if he had dumb luck last night and stumbled upon a Dendrobium plant, how could he be that lucky every time? Lin Qingxue originally wanted to remind you that if you really wanted to earn money, you should just find a job, even if it was only a few cents a day. It was still better than having no income. But when she thought about your temper, as long as you didn't go out to gamble and drink recklessly, she decided to just let you be. She took her chopsticks, wanting to return the pheasant leg from her bowl. But seeing her do this, you quickly used the baby as an excuse to stop her. Wifey, you're too thin. Eat more. Otherwise the baby won't have any milk. No matter how good milk powder is, it can't compare to breast milk. Milk powder is expensive and hard to buy. This is carp and tofu soup. Drinking it will help produce milk. These words earned you a glare from Lin Qingxue. The knuckles of her hand gripping the chopsticks turned white, but she didn't refuse again. Today you had been working tirelessly for a whole day and night, both sleepy and exhausted. The family's livelihood problem was finally solved. After filling your stomach, you directly said, "Wifey, I'm going to sleep first." Saying this, you got up, bent down, and went into the inner room, falling asleep the moment your head hit the pillow. When Lin Qingxue finished washing the dishes and returned to the room, she frowned at the clothes you had taken off on the floor. Then she picked them up and washed them under the moonlight. After finishing her chores, she dragged her exhausted body back to the bedroom. Without paying attention, she kicked the carrying basket at her feet. Lin Qingxue picked it up and took a look. To her surprise, it contained a brand new set of women's clothes and 3 sets of baby clothes. So she stared at your sleeping face. For quite a while, she found herself unable to understand this man anymore. You slept so deeply, completely dead to the world, deep into the night. Our daughter woke up twice, but she still didn't wake you up. It wasn't until early morning that you groggily opened your eyes, turning over to see Lin Qingxue curled up with her back to you. At this moment, she was only wearing a worn-out little tank top, which made your mouth water. After all, after Qingxue died in your past life, you never looked for another woman. So you reached out and pulled her into your arms. All of this felt as unreal as a dream. Just as you were about to lower your head for a kiss, your wife in your arms suddenly stiffened, clearly resisting your touch. Thus you suppressed the bitterness in your heart and rolled out of bed. For now, you just have to bear with it. You took the washed clothes off the clothesline and, not caring that they were still damp, quickly put them on. Then you tiptoed over to take the items out of the pannier and place them on the table. Lin Qingxue sat up on the bed with a cold expression. If you truly want to change, go find a job. As long as you're willing to put in the effort, you can make over a dozen you want a month, and our family will be able to get by. Hearing your wife take the initiative to speak to you, you felt a surge of joy, knowing that Lin Qingxue was thinking about your future. However, since God gave you a chance to live your life over again, you had to save enough startup capital by the time the economy fully opened up in your previous life. After she and your daughter were gone, you were like a stray dog, wandering aimlessly outside for a while. Later, you met a benefactor and got the chance to work as a waiter at a state-run store. Thanks to your sweet talk, you were gradually promoted to manager, which finally gave you the opportunity to interact across social classes. As for those big shots, in this life you would rely on your own hands to make your first pot of gold as soon as possible. Therefore, hunting and foraging Dendrobium was the fastest way to make money right now. More importantly, you now possessed the memories of your past life, so you knew exactly where the Dendrobium was with such a great opportunity. How could you pass it up? It's just that you didn't know how to explain to your wife right now why you insisted on going up the mountain to forage Dendrobium. Seeing you remain silent for a long time, Lin Qingxue, knowing your stubborn temper had flared up, simply pulled up the blanket and lay back down. There are some cornmeal steamed buns left for you in the pot on the kitchen stove. Hearing her words, you raised an eyebrow, your face full of uncontainable joy. You immediately went to the bedside and kissed Lin Qingxue on the cheek. Wife, I talked it over with our eldest brother yesterday. You don't need to go help them out today. Once I have some free time, I'll bring half of the pork in the kitchen to my mother-in-law. Seeing you approach, Lin Qingxue thought she had angered you and that you were going to hit her again, but she never expected you to ambush her like that. She didn't clearly hear what you said, nor did she notice that you also kissed your daughter before leaving. By the time she snapped out of it, you were long gone. In the dimly lit room, only she and her daughter sleeping in the small crib were left. Even though it was still early, she kept tossing and turning, completely unable to fall back asleep. She just lay in bed until the sun was high in the sky, when she heard someone knocking on the door outside. Second sister-in-law, what brings you here so early? Liu Giwa's eyes darted around the kitchen and she smiled brightly. Fourth brother's wife, I heard from eldest sister-in-law that your family ate meat last night. Did your fourth brother win big at gambling? Saying this without waiting for a reply, her feet seemed to have eyes of their own as she headed straight for the kitchen door. Oh my goodness. Did fourth brother steal or rob for this? How much did such a big piece of meat cost? Her family had seen a drop of grease in almost half a year. The kids had been fussing for days, but they couldn't bear to buy any. She finally managed to tear her eyes away from the meat, but then she caught sight of the pitched black wall, where half a pheasant was surprisingly hanging. She immediately lost her composure. Fourth brother's wife, you really need to keep an eye on your man. If his gambling goes wrong, he might end up in a labor camp. Hearing her say this, Lin Qingxue's face gradually darkened. Second sister-in-law, what kind of nonsense are you spouting? If he broke the law, naturally, the police will arrest him. There's no need for you to worry. Second sister-in-law, don't worry about it. Liu Gihua wanted to say more, but her eyes darted around, as if realizing something. The words that had reached her lips, she swallowed back. Don't be mad at your second sister-in-law. Just worried about our fourth brother. After all, your second brother and he are blood brothers. My Cao Dao, because he's craving meat so badly. Can you lend me 5 caddies of meat first? I'll have your second brother bring you the money later. All right. After living together for over 2 years, Lin Qingxue knew her perfectly well, and had figured her out long ago. What kind of person this second sister-in-law was. Anything that entered her house was like a meat bun thrown at a dog, never coming back, let alone 5 caddies. Even if she dared to make the decision to give her the meat, and even if she were in charge of the house, it would be impossible. Even if he comes home, I can't make that decision. Second sister-in-law, wait until the fourth brother comes back and tell him yourself. With that, she walked over and bolted the kitchen door. Seeing her act like this, Yu Gihua felt extremely displeased. Fine then. When the fourth brother comes back, remember to tell him to send the meat to my house. As she turned around to leave, the smile on Lu Guihua's face could no longer be maintained. Meanwhile, as it was getting dark on the mountain, relying on your memories from your past life, it took you a lot of effort to find a wild Dendrobium plant. With yesterday's experience in the dark, by the time most of the Dendrobiums were exposed, it was already getting dark. This one was much bigger than the one from yesterday. It wasn't until nightfall that you carefully pulled the entire massive plant out. Just as you were preparing to head down the mountain and go home, you turned around and ran into a Sika deer. It seemed it had come to munch on the Dendrobium. Seeing this, you hurriedly took out the shotgun you had traded for yesterday from your spatial dimension. In a flash, a gunshot echoed through the forest, scattering a flock of birds in panic. Meanwhile, back at home, Lin Qingxue had finished cooking. After warming up the formula for your daughter, seeing that you still hadn't returned, her brows furrowed tightly. Dendrobium isn't that easy to find. I still need to make him settle down and learn a real trade. Just as Lin Xie was lost in thought, you quietly walked into the yard. It wasn't until you took the items out of your pannier that Lin Qingxue, who was inside, heard the noise. She walked out holding your daughter. Wash your hands and eat. After saying that, she went back inside with your daughter. You noticed your wife took a glance at the basket, but she didn't say a word. When you went inside and saw the steaming hot food on the table, your eyes welled up with tears. You wished you could go back to your past life and slap yourself to death. With such a beautiful and virtuous wife, how could you not have cherished her properly? You walked over to the table, sat down, and took big bites of the food. I'm going to the village chief's house in a bit. We're going to get electricity wired to our house in the next few days. Hearing this, Lin Qingxue's hand, which was patting the baby, paused, and she couldn't help but say, if we get electricity, we'll have to pay an electricity bill every month. After saying that, she sneakily glanced at you, her eyes full of fear, afraid of upsetting you, and that you would flip the table. Keenly catching Lin Qingxue's change in expression, you immediately put down your chopsticks, went to the door, and brought the basket into the house. Wife, this is what I dug up today. When I go to the pharmacy in town to sell it some other day, it should fetch a decent amount of money. Lin Qingxue stared fixedly at the Dendrobium. She looked up and looked at you in disbelief. Did you really dig this up? Seeing this, you continued to explain, swearing that you didn't steal or rob. You told her it was the result of a hard day's work digging deep in the mountains. Seeing your frank expression, Lin Qingxue nodded, half believing and half doubting. Our second sister-in-law came over during the day. She wanted to borrow 5 caddies of pork, seeing, with a long face, clearly unhappy. You figured it was because she had been at home by herself. It's second sister-in-law. Giving it to her would just be infuriating. Then you said with a serious face, from now on, you're in charge of this house. You manage the money and the things. If you don't want to lend, we simply won't lend. Hearing this made Lin Qingxue mutter in her heart. She pondered for a good while before timidly saying she didn't want to lend to second sister-in-law. She says she's borrowing it, but she definitely won't return it. It's not the first time she's borrowed something and never returned it. Hearing Lin Qingxue's words, a relieved smile appeared on your face. You gently tapped her nose. He'll listen to you. We won't lend to her. Let her be mad. Seeing your smile, Lin Qingxue stared blankly. Then she gathered the bowls and stood up, while a stomach rumbled from the inner room. After washing the bowls clean, you cut half a caddy of meat and headed out into the dark. Village Chief Wangshu's tanned old face paused in surprise upon seeing you. But when he caught sight of the meat in your hand, his wrinkled face bloomed into a wide smile. Zhenguo, coming to see your uncle so late. What's the matter? He asked while taking the meat. I want to get electric lights installed at home. Could you help arrange it when you're free? Done. I'll set it up for you tomorrow. Hearing this, you didn't linger. You got up, thanked him, and turned to leave. But when you reached your kitchen, you unexpectedly saw Lin Qingxue eating by herself in the pitch dark, gnawing on the leftover meat bone. This sight stung your eyes painfully, and the blood in your veins seemed to freeze. You immediately said in a hoarse voice, "What are you doing?" Hearing your voice, Lin Qingxue trembled in fear and the bone at her lips fell to the ground. She then looked at you in the yard with absolute terror. Please don't hit me. These are just the ones you finished gnawing on. I just thought it was a pity to throw them away. At this moment, you felt as if struck by lightning, having never felt so defeated. With a heavy thud, you knelt down right in front of her. Lin Qi shrieked in sheer panic. What are you doing? Lin Qingxue lowered her eye, looking at the man kneeling before her, until she felt a warm dampness on her chest. He was actually crying. Her long-closed heart seemed to loosen just a bit. Seeing your wife so terrified while eating your leftovers felt just like a knife, ruthlessly stabbing into your heart. So you stood up from the ground, cupped your wife's pale cheeks, and lowered your head to kiss away the tears at the corners of her eyes. Wife, go wait in the main room. When the food is ready, I'll bring it in. You are my great benefactor. Lin Qingxue didn't understand what that meant. Feeling as shy as if she'd seen a ghost, she scurried out of the kitchen. After you busied yourself in the kitchen for a while, a fragrant plate of stir-fried sliced meat was ready. You felt the coarse-grained mantou scratch your throat, but your wife treasured it so much she couldn't bear to take a bite. As soon as you walked into the inner room, you saw a beautiful snow-white back come into view. Instantly, blood rushed to your lower abdomen. You took a few steps forward and pulled her into your embrace from behind. Wife, please never leave me again. In the midst of passion, for the first time, Lin Qingxue felt that intimacy could be such a comfortable and joyful experience. Other than right after their wedding, this was the first time the two of them slept together so affectionately. Thinking of what happened last night, Lin Qing felt her cheeks burn and turned her face away. But when she looked at the child in the small bed, Lin Qingxue's face instantly turned deathly pale from. It seemed she hadn't heard their daughter cry at all last night. Seeing your wife's sudden change in expression, with her eyes staring blankly toward their daughter, you quickly got out of bed and darted over to your daughter's small bed. You saw that your daughter was already awake, smiling with her big wide eyes. At this moment, looking at your baby girl, your heart completely melted. You carefully picked her up in your arms and returned to the bed, seeing her daughter unharmed and grinning. The heavy burden in Lin Qingxue's heart finally lifted, and her tense nerves relaxed. Her eyes immediately turned red, almost crying out of regret for sleeping so heavily last night. Such a tiny baby. If anything had happened to her, how could she live on? Wife, lie down with Nunu for a while. I'm going to make you breakfast. Saying this, you picked up the underpants thrown on the floor and put them right on. Lin Qingxue, on the other hand, checked her daughter's diaper under her bottom. Although it wasn't put on very neatly, it had been changed to a clean one. No wonder she didn't hear her daughter crying last night. It turned out this jerk got up to take care of her. Ever since the baby was born, this was the first time he had taken the initiative to care for the child. So has he really changed? Could she trust him one more time? Meanwhile, you were skillfully busy in the kitchen. By the time your wife came out holding the baby, the food was ready. Tofu baby bok choy cornmeal, plus multigrain steamed buns. Shirtless, you took the baby from Lin Qingxue's arms. Wife, go wash up first. Lin Qingxue was a little worried, but seeing you clumsily holding such a tiny baby, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. This is your own daughter, not a tiger. Is she going to bite you while eating? The village chief, Wang Xuanzhu, arrived with the electric. As soon as they entered the yard, they saw Lin Qingxue eating at the table, and you, shirtless, strolling around the yard holding the baby. He spotted a neat ring of teeth marks on the inside of your arm and smiled meaningfully. Zhengguo haven't finished eating yet. You didn't expect Wang Xuanzhu to bring someone over so early, and you led the village chief and the electrician to the gate outside the yard, chit-chatting until Lin Qingxue finished eating and went back inside. You finally handed the baby to your wife. Then you took out a pack of Dakiaman cigarettes from your loose underpants pocket. Looking at the Dakiaman cigarette in his hand, the village chief grinned with his yellow teeth and said, "You brat, you've made something of yourself. A pack of these cost 40 cents. The electrician next to him smiled even more heartily. Then, he tucked the cigarette behind his ear, shouldered his ladder, and walked around. This job behind the house was totally worth it. 40 cents a pack for cigarettes. He normally wouldn't even bear to smoke them himself. This family was quite generous. Once the electricity was hooked up, you went back into the house. As soon as you walked in, an article of clothing flew right at your face. Before you could figure out what was going on, you heard Lin Qingxue say, "Hurry up and put on your shirt. What do you look like, running around shirtless?" At this moment, there were a few extra scratch marks on your back. Those were left by Lin Qingxue last night. The village chief and electrician both saw them, but neither pointed them out. However, completely unaware, you strolled around shirtless, which made Lin Qingxue so embarrassed she wished the ground would swallow her up. With outsiders present, she was too embarrassed to remind you. It wasn't until after you went up the mountain that Lin Qingxue, clutching her burning cheeks, finally calmed down after a long while. Only then did she continue stripping the bedsheets. To wash them, she moved the baby's crib out to the yard, placed the baby on it, filled the basin with water, and got ready to wash the bedding. Just then Mother arrived carrying a basket. Inside were eggs and a small piece of meat. Seeing her mother, Lin Qingxue quickly wiped her hands and stood up. "Mom, why are you here?" Mother Lin carried the basket into the kitchen, and her gaze went back and forth examining her daughter closely. Seeing her tattered, ill-fitting clothes, her eyes welled up with tears. She quickly turned her face away and picked up her granddaughter from the crib, saying, "We just finished the chores at home, so I came over to see you." Saying this, her eyes the three dilapidated thatched roof mud houses. She regretted it in her heart every single moment. How could she have agreed to this marriage? It really ruined her completely. "Daughter, Mom has thought it over. If you really can't live with him anymore, just get a divorce. You're still young and you have a long life ahead. You can't let this scumbag ruin it." Hearing her mother's words, Lin Qingxue froze for a moment, sitting on the stool, without saying a word for a while. That day, when you snatched the money she borrowed from her family to buy food for the baby to buy alcohol, she really felt completely despairing. Feeling that being with him offered absolutely no hope at all. Even the thought of death crossed her mind. She just wanted to hold her daughter and jump into the reservoir. But after you sobered up, you were filled with regret, slapping yourself in the face a dozen times. And then you rushed out in a panic to buy rice paste for the baby. Over the past few days, she felt that you seemed to have truly changed, like a completely different person. Not going out anymore. Not drinking or gambling anymore either. Mother Lin looked at her daughter, who kept her head down in silence, thinking she was worried about the baby's future, saying, "If you want to take her with you, I can help you take care of her." At this point, she hesitated for a moment. "But if you stay home raising a child from now on, it won't be easy. In this day and age, divorce is extremely rare. No matter how bitter and hard life gets, a woman still has to grit her teeth and endure it." A divorced woman remarrying. Mom has thought about it too. Lin Qingxue took the baby from her mother's arms. "I don't want a divorce right now. He seems to be slowly changing for the better now," she said, tugging at the brand new baby clothes on her child. "He made some money and bought clothes for the baby and even a set for me, but I couldn't bear to wear them." Mother Lin looked at her daughter, seeing a long-lost blush on her fair and delicate face, and a renewed light seemingly shining in her eyes, and couldn't help but freeze in a daze. She had clearly overheard her Mozzie next door yesterday saying he owed someone with such a huge debt, and him not doing any honest work. How on earth could he pay it back? That was exactly why she was worried, and brought things over to check on her early in the morning. But looking at her daughter's expression, it didn't seem fake. If he has truly turned over a new leaf, he'll find a way to help him pay this money back, even if I have to sell everything. Pay it off. Thinking of this, she didn't tell her daughter what she had heard, afraid that she would get upset with you over this. She gathered her thoughts, nodded in relief with red eyes. And it's good if he can change. Then Mom can rest easy. Saying this, she raised her hand to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes. Meanwhile, you, having just gone up the mountain, were chewing on a multigrain steamed bun and calculating how much it would cost to build a 2-story house now. Roughly how much money would be needed. Based on the current price of the Dendrobium you could dig up, even after building the house, you would still have a substantial amount of savings for this era. After all, in these times, households with 10,000 yuan are rare. Thinking that you'd definitely be living in the village for the next 2 years, you decided to upgrade the living conditions first. Upon entering the 3 dilapidated mud brick rooms your family currently lived in, with your height, it felt like you couldn't even stand up straight. The dust inside was also incredibly thick, with dirt falling from everywhere. It really was a place for people to live. At this moment, you had no idea that your mother-in-law was discussing divorce with your wife. If you had known this, you probably wouldn't have been in the mood to go up the mountain to dig Dendrobium lately. After all, having been reborn, making money was important to you. But nothing was more important than your wife and child. You held the money-making knowledge from your past life. So naturally you were in no rush. In this short amount of time, seeing that it was almost noon, Mother Lin didn't even bother to eat, and hurried to head back home. She was afraid that if she took another bite, her daughter would have one less bite. Lin Qingxue couldn't stop her, so she had to take down the meat hanging in the kitchen, cut off more than half of it, and chased after her with it in hand. Mom, take this back for my brother and sister-in-law, for them to eat. When Mother Lin saw such a large piece of meat, she repeatedly waved her hands, refusing to take it, terrified that you would find out that she was subsidizing her maiden family like this, afraid he would hit her daughter again, and even more afraid her daughter would go hungry and suffer. You keep it to eat. We're not short of food at home. Look at how skinny you are. You need to nourish yourself. Otherwise, how will the baby have milk? Mother Lin ultimately didn't take the meat. Carrying her basket, she walked away step by step. Lin Qingxue stood at the door, watching helplessly as her mother walked further and further away, until she was out of sight, before turning back into the kitchen with the meat in hand. Next door's Zhang Guolan was about the same age as Lin Qingxue but had married earlier. She married 2 years earlier and had dark skin. She leaned over the wall munching on a raw radish. Sister, you stay indoors all day. But rumors are spreading outside. The cries from your second sister-in-law being beaten by your second brother last night were heard by several families. Lin Qingxue, coming out of the kitchen, sat on a stool in the courtyard, responding half-heartedly. Seeing she wasn't saying much, Zhang pulled up a stool and sat down in front of her wash basin, and lowered her voice to a whisper. Everyone outside is saying that your second brother's eldest son, Dabao, isn't this? Lin Qingxue immediately stopped what she was doing, and looked up at Zhang Guolan. He's your eldest brother's kid. Seeing the confusion in her eyes, Zhang Guolan shoved her half-eaten radish into her pocket. With a gossipy face whispered in her ear, Lin Qingxue was completely dumbfounded after hearing it. She really couldn't believe that such a thing could happen. She used to respect this eldest brother quite a bit, thinking he was honest, sincere, and fair, acting like a true older brother. But hearing this made her feel quite disgusted. How could this happen? Zhang Guolan seemed very satisfied with her reaction and patted the young city wife. All right. I'm going home to cook for my husband, so I won't chat anymore. That night you came back very late. On your way back you saw the lights on at home from afar, and you couldn't help marveling at how much brighter the electric light was than the sheet fat lamp. Seeing you return, Lin Qingxue quickly brought out the warm dishes and steamed buns from the pot, and asked casually, why are you back so late today? Noticing the dirt on your clothes, she put down the dishes to brush it off, but you quickly stopped her. You turned and bolted the main room's door, then dug something out from the straw in the basket, and carefully placed it on the table. After digging up the Dendrobium, I stumbled upon an unexpected harvest on the way back. You didn't tell your wife that it was because you slipped and fell that you found this thing, and climbing back up took a lot of effort, which was why you were back so late. This thing's price is no lower than Dendrobium. It's also sold by the It can be considered an unexpected small fortune. You planned to spend some intimate time with your wife tonight, and skip going to the mountain tomorrow, to first go and sell the goods on hand. Lin Qingxue looked at the dark brown, ginger-like object he placed on the table. She seemed to have seen it in a book before, and asked uncertainly, is this fleeceflower root? Her tone carried a hint of disbelief. You didn't expect your wife to be so knowledgeable. Most people in the village still don't know how precious this thing is. Otherwise, all the good treasures on the mountain would have been cleared out long ago. Dendrobium and fleeceflower root will only remain precious for another 10 years or so. After planting technology improves, they will be artificially cultivated and become common in the market, so they won't be rare anymore. But even then, the prices of rare wild medicinal herbs will still be ridiculously high, because wild ones simply can't be bought. You flashed a big toothy grin and pulled your beautiful wife into your arms. Kissing her soft white cheek, and looking into her sparkling eyes, you said, that's right. It's fleeceflower root. Tomorrow it'll take you and the baby for a stroll in the city, and sell these treasures to the pharmacy while we're at it. Upon hearing about taking the baby out, Lin Qingxue's body suddenly stiffened. She recalled how previously he had said he would sell their daughter to a barren family in the city. She's still feeling uneasy even now. Who knows if she really can't have kids, or if she was bought to be a child bride. She broke free from his embrace, filled with defensiveness and vigilance. She refused, saying their daughter was still too young, so the two of them wouldn't go. Hurry up and wash your hands for dinner. You sharply noticed something was wrong with your wife. You originally wanted to take her out for a walk, and buy her some winter clothes while at it, but seeing her become so vigilant again, it was obvious she feared you had bad intentions towards your daughter again. After all the bastardly things you had done, how could it be so easy for her to let go of her trauma? Her trust was overdrawn long ago, so you could only take it slow. You took off the shirt covered in mud spots, opened the door and walked out. After a quick wash, you washed your face and went back inside to sit down. Only then did you notice the food on the table. A plate of golden scrambled eggs, and a small plate of leftover stir-fried meat from the morning. Did she not eat anything for lunch if she keeps scrimping and saving? How long would it take to fatten her up? It seemed you had to hurry up and make more money, so she could feel secure. Wifey, where did these eggs come from? Lin Qingxue lowered her head and served you a bowl of flour paste soup, not long after you went out. My mom came by. She brought them. As for her mother bringing up the divorce, she didn't mention a single word of it. Hearing that your mother-in-law brought them, you thought of how you had previously demanded money from her to drink. You felt so ashamed, and too embarrassed to face her. You didn't ask why your mother-in-law came over either. You just calculated in your mind that after selling the things on hand tomorrow, you would first pay back the money you took from your mother-in-law. You reached out and pulled your wife over, making her sit down. Eat up. You said, handing her a mixed grain steamed bun. Your wife still couldn't bear to steam pure white flour buns, so she made ones mixed with half white flour. You picked up a cornmeal steamed bun yourself, and started devouring it. Lin Qingxue took a small bite of the mixed grain steamed bun, and looked up to secretly observe the man in front of her. If only he could stay like this forever. She just didn't know how long this enthusiasm of his would last. While the two of you were eating, a voice calling from outside rang out. Fourth brother. It's me or Lucy. Come on out. We're missing one for the game. The guys are waiting for you to drink and play cards. Hearing this voice, Lin Qingxue's face instantly turned pale. She stared straight at you, terrified you go out drinking and gambling with them like before. Hearing this voice, you froze for a moment, then remembered who it was. You put down your chopsticks, and looking up, you saw your wife's little face. You quickly got up and pulled her into your arms. Wifey, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Your tone was full of worry and tension. Pulled into your embrace, Lin Qingxue's slender, pale fingers tightly gripped the undershirt on your chest. Her lips trembled slightly. Are you going out to drink and play cards with them again? Hearing this, you finally understood why your wife was acting this way. She was afraid you'd relapse into your old habits. Resting your chin on the top of her soft hair, your arms tightened unconsciously, holding her even closer. The body in your arms was incredibly frail. Since marrying you, she hadn't enjoyed a single good day, and even a full meal had become a luxury. Yet despite all this, she still harbored hope for you, wanting to live a steady life with you. Taking a deep breath, you forced the burning sensation in your eyes back down, and spoke in a low, husky voice to comfort her. Don't worry, not going. I'll go chase them away right now. I won't mess around with them anymore. Hearing your words, Lin Qingxue, sitting sideways in your arms, stared straight at you with scrutinizing eyes and asked, You're really not going? You lowered your eyes, meeting your wife's anxious and scrutinizing gaze, and really wanted to pull your heart out to show her, to tell her that you had truly turned over a new leaf. Unable to resist, you pecked her on her perky nose again, exhaling a clean and warm breath, and promised, Be really not going, don't worry. I'll tell them to get lost right now. Then you gently placed your wife back onto the stool. All right. You keep eating. I'll be right back. As you straightened up, you noticed that your undershirt was still tightly clenched in your wife's hands. If you didn't know the three guys outside were up to no good, you'd really want to take her out with you, to let her watch you reject them, so as to give her some peace of mind. You lowered your head and kissed her on the top of her head again. As a way to comfort her, your rough, warm hand gently patted her thin back, and only then did she slowly let go. You straightened your back and took vigorous strides, heading out. Arriving at the courtyard gate, you opened the wooden door. When those guys saw you come out, the one called Ear Lucy smiled sleazily and made a dirty joke. Fourth brother, you're really something else. Sister-in-law just finished her confinement not long ago, and you already can't get out of bed. It's been days since you came to grab a drink with us brothers. Hearing those bastard words, your sharp brows revealed a fierce hostility, and you roared sternly. Damn it. Watch your dirty mouth from now on. If you don't know how to speak, shut your stinking mouth. The other two, who were laughing along, saw your expression change, immediately wiped their smiles away, and hurried to smooth things over. Fourth brother, he's just got a loose mouth. Just don't mind him. Let's go. Let's go get a drink, brothers. As he spoke, he reached out to put an arm around your shoulder. You raised your hand and pushed away the arm he extended, and glanced at the other two from the corner of your eye. If it's drinking or playing cards, don't come looking for me anymore. I've quit. The three of them looked at you like they'd seen a ghost. Looking at each other, they were completely dumbfounded. The guy called her Liuzi, still wearing a wretched smile on his face, fearlessly continued to tease, fourth brother. Are you so tangled up with little sister-in-law that you can't get out of bed? Since she's done with her confinement, why don't you let us brothers have a taste too? Before he could even finish his sentence, you landed a solid kick on him, kicking him right in the chest. He was sent flying, landing flat on his back. Groaning in pain, you strode forward, stepping right between his legs and bent down. Your dark eyes flashed with ruthlessness, staring straight at the scumbag on the ground. If you dare spew your shit again, I will. So both your upper and lower mouths shut, and break your third leg. As you spoke, you ground your foot down harder. Verluzi lay on the ground, ignoring the pain in his chest. He desperately used his hands to push against your large foot, crushing his crop, screaming and howling at the top of his lungs. Fourth brother. I was wrong. He'll never talk nonsense again. The other two were so terrified by this scene they nearly lost their souls, speechless for a long time. The murderous aura radiating from you seemed incredibly terrifying in the dark night. No one dared step forward to stop the fight. Since childhood, they had been afraid of this guy because when he fought, he had no regard for his life. He was a ruthless character. But seeing him today for the first time, just his anger made him look like a starving, man-eating tiger, sending shivers down their spines. Afraid that Erluz's loud wailing would draw your wife out, and not wanting her to see your violent side, to avoid scaring her. If because of this trivial matter, she became afraid of you again, that would be a disaster. You straightened up, looking down condescendingly, glaring at Erluzi on the ground as you pulled your foot back. Get lost. The two of them felt as if they received a royal pardon. They hurriedly helped Erluzi up, and said to you, fourth brother, well be leaving now. As soon as the three of them left, you retracted your aggressive aura, stepped into the courtyard, and bolted the door. Slam. Inside the house, Lin Qingxue had been on edge ever since you went out, feeling restless and anxious, sitting on pins and needles, finding every passing second unbearable. Seeing that you hadn't returned for a long time, her heart almost ran completely cold, even though her stomach was growling with hunger. Looking at the steaming food on the table, she couldn't eat a single bite without you there. In just these past few days, seeing you gradually change for the better, hope had unknowingly reignited in her heart for you. She didn't expect you to become incredibly wealthy. She just hoped you could live a peaceful and steady life. But if he ran off to drink and gamble again, what would she do? With the child still so small, she wouldn't be able to take her out to work at all. Would she really have to get a divorce? As she was lost in thought, she heard the sound of steady footsteps. Her eyes involuntarily looked toward the direction of the sound, only to see his tall figure walking in from the moonlight. At this moment, Lin Qingxue's previously lifeless eyes suddenly lit up. He actually didn't go out with those bastards to fool around. While she was still dazed, you had already walked up behind her. You bent down and pulled her into your broad embrace, kissed your wife's fair cheek and asked, what's wrong? Your man just went out for a little while and you don't recognize me. As you spoke, you handed the chopsticks to her, sat down at the table, grabbed a cornmeal bun and started eagerly devouring it on the small stool. Lin Qingxue still hadn't fully reacted. She subconsciously asked you, are you really not going to fool around with them anymore? Reporting to my lady wife, I've cut ties with them completely from now on. I won't hang out with them anymore. Lin Qingxue then nodded and started eating slowly. While eating, she would sneak glances at her man, seeing you eat so fast, but with decent table manners, coupled with your sharply defined handsome face. It was actually quite pleasing to the eye. Back then when she married you, besides the fact that you had saved her life, part of the reason was actually that you were good looking. At the time she was completely bewitched by your appearance, and for her brother's sake, she ended up marrying a destitute man like you. Seeing your wife staring at you in a daze, you didn't know what her little head was pondering again. You placed a piece of golden egg on her bun, grinned and teased. Eat up, wifey. He'll let you look all you want in bed later. Your shameless words brought Lin Qingxue back to her senses. Seeing your roguish demeanor, she glared at you fiercely and blushed deeply, then lowered her head and started eating. After eating your fill, you weren't in a hurry to leave. Sitting on the small stool, you stared intently at your wife, growing fonder the more you looked. Even though supplies were scarce in this era, and the food was poor, with no cosmetics available, her skin was still so smooth and flawless, looking more beautiful than those celebrities who got injections. You noticed that the joints of your wife's hand holding the chopsticks were red, so you grabbed her slender wrist. You pulled it in front of you. Thinking of the bedsheets drying outside, you planned to sell your stuff tomorrow and get a washing machine ration coupon from the black market. In this era, many people didn't even know what a washing machine was, let alone be willing to spend money on one. With a washing machine, your wife would have to scrub clothes by hand anymore. Lin Qingxue pulled her hand back. Being stared at by you made her feel incredibly shocked. If you're full, go boil some water. Wash yourself up. You are covered in dirt. You got up, kissed your wife on the cheek, and went to the kitchen to boil water. After you left, Lin Qingxue put down her chopstick and touched her burning cheeks. Since last night, this man had taken to hugging and holding her, and even kissing her from time to time. Every time he got close, she could smell his manly scent, making her heart feel like a kicking rabbit, pounding wildly. She couldn't even figure it out herself. What was going on? After dinner, you took Lin Qingxue by the hand and said, you wanted to take her for a walk. On the way back from digesting the meal, you didn't head straight home, but led Lin Qingxue in a different direction. Next to the cowshed was a dilapidated mud. Outside there was a makeshift dirt stove. Inside, a woman clutched her chest and coughed incessantly. She grabbed a small handful of cornmeal and mixed it with water, putting it into a chipped ceramic pot. Just walking these few steps made large beads of sweat break out on her face, rolling down her forehead in a heartbreaking way. A man with half-white hair strode over from not far away. Frowning, he took the water dipper from her and told her to go back inside and lie down properly, saying he would cook. The woman looked at him as he handed her half a flatbread he had traded for. I had good luck today and traded for a flatbread. I ate half and brought the rest back. Eat it quickly so you can recover faster. You already ate. The man didn't hesitate at all. He added water to the pot, grabbed some rice, squatted down and started the fire. I ate, he replied. The woman, considering her own body's condition, handed the flatbread back. I'm not hungry. You eat it all. I've been lying down all day and just want some porridge. The man silently stoked the fire. I told you to eat. How can you get better without eating? The man kept his head down, his eyes stinging. If they ate their fill today, what would they eat tomorrow? He didn't care about his own body anymore. But even for that little bit of rice, he had to beg several villagers to trade for it. It broke his heart to see her suffering and struggling every day. Having suffered with him in the countryside, he held her hand. Don't think too much. Just focus on recovering. Tomorrow I'll find medicine for you and definitely cure your illness. Lin Qingxue felt terrible watching this on the way back. She asked you about the couple's situation. You were somewhat silent. How should you put it? You couldn't say you were unfamiliar with that man. But in your past life as a veteran who had navigated the business world for years, you knew he donated his entire fortune after passing away. In his wife's name, he established a medical treatment foundation. His greatest regret in life was failing to protect his beloved wife and watching her die from illness. You guessed from your memories that it was this very illness that led to his wife's death. You figured Mrs. Yin's illness was mainly caused by malnutrition, living in a drafty couch, and surviving on watery broth every day. Even a minor illness could drag on into a fatal disease. You planned to have your high school educated wife bring medicine and food, along with some money to invest in him. This future big shot could at least be her tutor before the college entrance exams resumed. Early the next morning before the sky brightened, you opened your eyes. You quietly got out of bed, carefully picked up your daughter, and gently placed her next to your wife. You tucked them in carefully and cooked breakfast for your wife. After breakfast, you closed the door from the outside. You set off on your journey. Today was market day. And even though it was still early, there were already quite a few pedestrians on the road. In the countryside during this era, if a family had a 28-inch bicycle, their living conditions would be considered quite good. Therefore, most people still had to rely on walking, relying on memories from your past life. You quickly found that relatively large traditional Chinese medicine shop. The middle-aged man with a square face looked you up and down when he saw your goods. Then he picked up the Dendrobium and examined it carefully. Seeing that this Dendrobium was actually of top quality, with every single stem perfectly intact in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a bit surprised. He carefully placed the Dendrobium on the counter and tentatively asked for your price. Hearing him ask for a price, you didn't hold back and directly quoted a number. You knew very well in your heart that the other party would definitely bargain. As soon as the pharmacy boss heard your quoted price, he knew what he was dealing with. He knew you weren't someone easy to fool. He glanced at your carrying basket and invited you into the backyard. The two of you haggled in the backyard for almost an hour. In the end, you sold the 2 Dendrobium plants, 1 fleeceflower root, and the deer velvet antler to him. You were also quite satisfied with the day's price and left the pharmacy carrying 50 great 10-yuan bills. With money in hand, you headed to the state-run department store. You wanted to buy a washing machine, but were dumbfounded after asking the sales clerk. You slapped your forehead. Although washing machines existed now, they were only used in hotels and laundromats, and hadn't entered regular households yet. The first domestically produced washing machine came out in 1978, so it hadn't been manufactured yet. However, you unexpectedly acquired a ticket for a 9-inch black and white TV, and bought it without a second thought. You also bought some stamps, meat coupons, and flower coupons. The black marketers saw a big customer coming, and were exceptionally enthusiastic toward you. Hearing that you wanted to buy a TV that very day, they helped you find an acquaintance with a tractor. For 2 yuan, he could haul everything back to the village for you. You agreed to it without a second thought. Next, you bought your wife a brand new bright red sweater pants and leather shoes at the state-run department store. You also bought a few sets of brand new little clothes for the child, as well as several new cotton quilts, buying everything you could think of, filling half the tractor. The tractor driver watched in stunned disbelief, unable to believe that this young man in shabby clothes was rich enough to buy so many things at once. By the time you finished your massive shopping spree, it was already afternoon. Meanwhile, when Lin Qingxue woke up at home in the morning, she saw the child still sleeping beside her, but you had left at some unknown time. Lin Qingxue dragged her heavy, aching body out of bed. She noticed that before you left early in the morning, the food had been properly prepared with golden eggs placed on the table, and pieces of meat sizzling with oil from being pan-fried. To say that Lin Qingxue's heart didn't waver at all would be a complete lie. Around noon, Wang Xuanzhu led a pretty young girl through the door. 4th brother's wife. This is a sent-down youth from the city. Educated youth Tanshin will be staying at your house from now on. Tell 4th brother to tidy up a room for her. Lin Qingxue was momentarily stunned, with a young unmarried woman suddenly moving into their home. How could they all fit in these 3 small mud brick rooms? One room was for the couple, the main room was the place for eating, and the other room was filled with odds and ends. Where was there a place for her to stay? Village chief. He's not at home. We can't make this decision. Wang Xuanzhu smiled so widely that the wrinkles on his face piled up together. He waved at Lin Qingxue, completely ignoring her words, turned around, gave a few instructions to the educated youth beside him, and walked away. If it weren't for the sake of the piece of meat that boy had given him, how could he have sent such a pretty young maiden to his house out of this batch of sent-down youths? Out of the 20-odd people in total, most were strong young men. This delicate little girl was the only one he arranged to stay here. For the young couple, housing a girl was better than a young man. After all, when they were intimate at night, it's much more convenient to host a girl than a guy. There's nothing to shy away from and even less to worry about. My young and beautiful wife being coveted by others. Left behind, Li Qingxue carried her canvas satchel and looked at the 3 dilapidated mud houses, her heart sinking. Life from now on would probably be harder than for any of the other sent-down youths. The family Hongmi was assigned to seemed to be living quite comfortably. They were a middle-aged couple with 3 kids, all dressed brightly on the way here. She heard them say the man of the house she was assigned to was no good. He drank, gambled, and even beat his wife. The family was dirt poor and could barely put food on the table. Before coming here, she thought they were exaggerating, but looking at it now they weren't lying at all. However, the hostess of this house, despite wearing shabby, ill-fitting clothes, was incredibly beautiful and delicate. With exquisite features like someone walking out of a painting, she didn't look like a village woman at all. Lin Qingxue noticed the gaze carefully examining her. She looked down at her patched old clothes, then at the woman before her, who was wearing a fashionable dacron dress, white socks and small leather shoes. Looking so bright and glamorous, she pretended not to notice the scrutinizing look and said, "Have a seat first. That room is a mess and full of clutter. You'll have to wait for my husband to come back to clear out a space for you." After speaking, she turned and went into the house, brought out a thermos, and poured a bowl of water for the guest. Li Tianchen nodded somewhat awkwardly and sat down on a stool in the courtyard. She was scheming in her mind to do everything possible to quickly get a notice for a job back in the city. She didn't want to stay in this wretched place for another day, especially living in the house of a local ruffian. She had to be careful in the future so that the ruffian wouldn't take advantage of her. Lin Qingxue had originally planned to just throw something simple together for lunch, but now that a new sent-down youth had arrived, she had no choice but to roll up her sleeves and start preparing a meal. Li Tianchen thought that since she would be living here from now on, she couldn't just eat and live for free, so she washed her hands and entered the kitchen wanting to help. "Sister-in-law, how about I tend the fire?" she said as she walked into the kitchen, but she froze. The rundown kitchen was actually clean and tidy, and there was a huge piece of meat hanging from the beam. Who said this family was so poor they couldn't even afford food? If they couldn't afford food, how could they eat meat, and such a big piece at that? Lin Qingxue was looking down kneading dough. Hearing Li Tianchen's words, she looked up and said, "I don't need your help. If you have nothing else to do, just help me watch the baby in the yard." Hearing this, Tianchen nodded, left the kitchen, and went over to the crib. Looking at the baby lying there with fair skin like a porcelain doll, she found her very endearing and bent down to playfully tease her. She wondered in her heart. The hostess was about the same age as her, and so fair and beautiful. Why did she marry so early? How could she settle for such a worthless man, a local ruffian at that? Was she perhaps forced by that ruffian, leaving her no choice but to marry him? At the thought of this, Tianchen felt a wave of worry. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. She would rather have been assigned anywhere else. Even a much poorer place would have been fine, as long as the man of the house was a decent person. In the kitchen, Lin Qingxue was busy cooking, completely unaware of the dramatic thoughts running through the sent-down youth's mind outside. Before long, a piping hot bowl of noodles was ready. Lin Qingxue walked out carrying the noodles and called out, "Comrade, come have a bowl of noodles first." Li Tianchen snapped back to reality, staring blankly at the noodles with floating oil spots in the large bowl on the table. She quickly said, "My name is Tianchen, sister-in-law. Just call me Tianchen from now on." Lin Qingxue nodded, not saying anything more. At nearly 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the tractor rumbled into the village, stopping at your doorstep as you directed. Lin Qingxue, who was shucking corn in the yard, suddenly heard the commotion outside, and quickly put down her work. She stood up and walked to the door, just in time to see Emily hop off the tractor. She muttered in her heart, wondering why you came back on this chugging tractor. Before she could figure it out and ask, the tractor driver shouted, "Young man with all this stuff, will your house have enough room?" Saying this, he walked from the front to the back of the vehicle, carefully moving the television to the edge bit by bit. Afraid of bumping and breaking it, you lunged forward and hoisted the TV off the vehicle, facing the tractor. The driver grinned and said, "There's plenty of room." Lin Qingxue, standing nearby, was stunned by the sight. She blankly asked, "Did you buy all these?" Her voice full of disbelief. "So many things, including a TV. How much money and coupons did this cost?" Seeing your wife's fair and beautiful face, with her eyes staring blankly, you walked up to her, touched her cheek, and knew in your heart that she was heartbroken over the money. But this little bit of money was nothing to you at all. You just wanted your wife to enjoy a good life with you from now on, never letting her suffer again. You leaned into Lin Qingxue and whispered in her ear, "I'll explain it in detail later. Step aside for now, so I don't bump into you. Let me unload the stuff first." Hearing your words, Lin Qingxue moved to the side like a puppet, watching the items being unloaded from the vehicle, piling up like a small mountain. She felt so regretful in her heart. If she had known, she would have taken the baby and gone to the city with you. How much did all this cost? How could you be so bad at managing the household? Where did you get the money and coupons? Who in an ordinary family could afford a television? Even the electricity bill would cost a lot. What a spendthrift. At this time, Li Tianchen, standing in the corner holding the baby, stared intently at that tall, broad-shouldered, long-legged young man. Was he the village thug? She originally thought you were ugly and vulgar, but never expected that you were a man with deep, handsome features. Growing up, she had rarely seen such a handsome man, making her heart flutter wildly. She Now finally understood why a beautiful woman like Lin Qingxue married so early. It turns out this man is even better looking than Wang Xinggang in the movies. After unloading the items, you pulled 2 yuan from your pocket and handed it to the driver who took the money waved and drove the tractor away. You then started walking into the yard. Your wife wanted to help, but you refused, telling her to sit and rest, completely oblivious to the unfamiliar woman in the house. Zhao Zhenguo rushed over after hearing the news. He was stunned to see so many things piled up at his brother's. Where did this lazy guy get so much money to buy all this? He was extremely poor and had nothing in the house to sell. Could he have sold his child? Thinking of this, Zhao Zhenguo couldn't help but speed up his pace, rushing to the door. He saw the little niece in the female educated youth's arms at a glance, and his heart finally settled down. Zhao Zhenguo didn't say a word, just quietly helped move the items into the yard. Looking at that heavy iron box that produced images and sounds as soon as it was plugged in, a bunch of ants were fighting on it, looking quite lively, like watching a movie. He curiously walked around it a few times, too embarrassed to reach out. I heard this thing is super expensive, costing several hundred yuan. This is the TV set city folks often talk. I really didn't expect my own brother to bring one back. A set that's the only one in the whole village, after properly storing the items. Zhao Zhenguo pulled you to the courtyard gate and asked where you got so much money. You were unhurried, patted your chest and said that this was all from hunting and selling the game at the black market. You didn't tell your eldest brother about the Dendrobium. It wasn't that you didn't trust him, but Dendrobium grows on steep cliffs. Even if you told him, he wouldn't be able to help much. If the word got out, it would cut off your own source of income. Wait until it gets warm next spring. You will take your eldest and second brothers up the mountain to find some good spots to pick it. Tell them the tricks, and from then on, it will depend on their own luck. Zhao Zhenguo wanted to advise you to just focus on farming, but looking at his own brother in front of him, with shining eyes, revealing a kind of shrewdness and intelligence he had never seen before, as if he were a completely different person. It made him, the eldest brother, feel like he barely recognized him. You thought that since your brother rarely visited, you would reveal your house-building plan to him, and asked him to come and help, offering him a wage of 1 per day. Zhao Zhenguo took a drag of his cigarette, and said, as long as you don't act foolishly, I do it for free. What would I need wages? But building a house is no joke. It costs a lot of money. Brother, I have the money. As for wages, I'll pay you as agreed. Even brothers must keep clear accounts. Please help me find a skilled craftsman. Ask him to use better materials so we can try to move in before winter. Zhao Zhenguo nodded. He thought his fourth brother just wanted to repair those 3 thatched cottages. Who would have thought it'd be so bold as to build a 2-story house? The reason you handed all this over to your own brother was truly because you were extremely busy yourself. You figured you had to hurry before winter and harvest all the Dendrobium. If you could encounter wild herbs like fleeceflower root again to sell for money, or if you could bump into something like a lost deer and get some velvet antler, that would be a huge steal. Seeing that it was still early, the brothers discussed it and went to find Wang Xuanzhu. In the planned economy era, buying bricks to build a house required an approval slip. Village chief Wang Xuanzhu's power was unmatched in these times. You gave him a pack of document cigarettes and slipped him a 1 yuan bill, smoothly getting the approval slip to buy bricks. With the slip issued, you headed straight to the commune's brickyard to order the bricks needed for building the house. Zhao Zhenguo was confused. How thick a wall was his fourth brother planning to build to order so many bricks? You told him you were going to build 2 stories. Zhao Zhenguo watched as you took out 2 great unity bills without batting an eye and handed them to the brickyard. Boss Zhang grimaced in heartache. Then he heard you say that the rest of the money would be settled once all the bricks were hauled home. Zhao Zhenguo widened his eyes, finding this matter absolutely unbelievable. Those were great unity bills, not toilet paper. Just carrying them so casually in your pocket. Aren't you afraid of losing them? Zhao Zhenguo realized that his deadbeat gambler of a fourth brother, now compared to outsiders, had a lot of swagger. He looked even more like a leader than the brickyard boss, standing there with a natural authority. If he changed into blue cloth jacket without patches, people would believe it. If he said he earned a government salary, if it weren't for the calluses on his hand and the knife scars from his previous fierce fights, Zhao Zhenguo would have suspected that his fourth brother had been secretly swapped on the way home. Zhao Zhenguo was completely dizzy and felt like he was floating. It was still his fourth brother, of course. But why did he always feel it was weird? When you were almost home, you took 5 great unity bills out of your jacket pocket, handed it over. Big brother, aside from the timber, Bill have to trouble you to help with the other materials. Zhao Zhenguo reached out. Feeling his hands were dirty, he rubbed them on the hem of his shirt. Before finally taking the money, he carefully tucked the money into his inner pocket. Terrified of losing it by accident, he looked at you earnestly and said, with this much money, since you trust your big brother, I will definitely get the job done beautifully for you. You nodded, thinking to yourself, what's there to be stingy about? If I hadn't bought things to treat my wife better, given all the grievances she suffered in the previous life, maybe our daughter wouldn't even have been born, and she would have been tormented to death by me. In the Zhao family's main room, Lin Qingxue was organizing the things you bought. She dug out a square cloth from the cabinet and carefully draped it over the TV, afraid it would get dirty from the dust. As for the TV, she wondered why you even bought such a thing. The village had frequent power outages, and you had to set up an antenna when there was no signal. The screen was just full of static. But seeing how enthusiastic you were, she couldn't bring herself to complain about you wasting money. She noticed you had bought things for her and your daughter again. There was a women's sweater, pants, leather shoes, and several sets of small clothes for your daughter. Why was this man spending recklessly again? Who bought new clothes to wear every day? That jacket you bought for her at the town last time. She hadn't even worn it yet, because she couldn't bear to. And now you had bought her more clothes. Still seeing you keep the two of them in your thoughts made Lin Qingxue very happy. She picked up the soft thick cotton quilt, ready to put it in the trunk, and couldn't help but shed a tear. This was even better than the newly fluffed cotton quilt from when she married you. After putting everything away, Lin Qingxue realized that you hadn't bought anything for yourself at all. Your shirt was covered in patches, and your shoes even had a hole in them. Yi Tianxian helped hold your daughter, staring eagerly at the new clothes, itching with desire. Like a cat seeing a fish, that V-neck sweater was the most fashionable style in the city. She had wanted to buy it when shopping, but her parents completely disagreed. It cost nearly half a month's salary to buy a sweater. Yet the clothes she had wanted, but couldn't afford, were now right here, and more than one piece. Li Tianxian was utterly green with envy toward Lin Qing. Her husband was handsome and talented, was incredibly willing to spend the money on his wife, and knew how to cherish her. Just now when moving things, he wouldn't let her lift a finger, terrified she would get tired, cherishing her like the apple of his eye. How could the village spread rumors that such a good man was a gambling deadbeat? It was absolute nonsense. You strode in from outside, and upon entering you saw an unfamiliar young woman, standing there holding the child, smiling at your wife. Is this your friend? Li Tianxian, noticing your gaze, lowered her eyes, not daring to meet your eyes. Although she fancied herself a city girl and always looked down on these country bumpkins, ever since this man returned, covered in dust from riding the tractor. Even though she had been standing right there, his eyes and heart only saw his wife, as if she were the only living person in the room. He hadn't so much as glanced at her from beginning to end. Lin Qingxue was busy with her chores. Hearing you ask this, she finally realized there was another person in the house. The sent-down female youth had kept quiet all along, and because she herself was so focused on organizing the things you bought, she had completely forgotten about her. Lin Qingxue apologetically took the child back from Etienne's arms and said to you, "This is the sent-down youth the captain brought over. He said she wants to stay at our house temporarily. What do you think about tidying up the west room and clearing it out for her to stay in?" Her tone carried a hint of consultation. Even though you said she was in charge of the house, she still didn't dare to make decisions on her own, terrified of upsetting you. No. When you heard that an outsider was going to stay, you furrowed your brows slightly without realizing it. You really didn't want a stranger interrupting your sweet life with your wife. But when you saw your wife's expectant look, the words of refusal just couldn't come out of your mouth. You were afraid she'd think you found her annoying. You didn't say anything. First, you pulled your wife into the inner room and took off your outer coat. Then you took out the money from selling the Dendrobium that was left from the hidden pocket and handed it to her. Next, you took the baby from Qingxue's arms, and while teasing the baby, you brought up your plan to build a new house. You told her about it. After you spoke, Lin Qingxue took the money from your hand. Looking at the crisp new 10 yuan notes in her hand, she felt a bit of disbelief. You had bought so many things, yet there was still so much money left over. 2 stalks of Dendrobium, 1 fleeceflower root, and whatever that velvet antler was, were they really worth so much? When you mentioned the idea of building a house, Lin Qingxue quickly put the money away, under your eager gaze. She carefully hid the money securely, and then fell into a brief silence. If you didn't build a house, the money earned these 2 times would be enough for your family of 3 to live comfortably for years. You could have a peaceful and stable life, but if you really built a house, this money probably wouldn't nearly enough, and you'd end up in huge debt. Her younger brother's family had also helped out a lot these past 2 years. Now that they also had a child and needed to support themselves, how could she possibly have the nerve to ask to borrow money again? As Lin Qingxue was thinking, you seemed to see right through her thoughts. You suddenly kissed her on her fair cheek and said, "Wife, about the money, you don't need to worry, you have me. Just rest well at home. Don't tire yourself out." On her cheek, that sudden soft and warm made Lin Qingxue's face blush completely red. She shot you a charmingly reproachful glare, and reminded you in a low voice, "What are you doing? There's someone outside, have you no shame?" Your skin was as thick as a brick wall. You just smiled playfully. Looking at Lin Qingxue in your previous life, you had a massive net worth, and had been to every kind of occasion imaginable. As you spoke, you leaned down again, and lowered your head, gently biting down on Lin Qingxue's full rosy lips. Looking at your wife's fair and pink-tinted cheeks, your heart completely melted. You're a mother now. Why are you still so shy? You stopped teasing her, and brought the topic back to the main point, saying, "Tomorrow, eldest brother will bring the building materials back. If he doesn't have enough money, and asks you for some, don't forget to give it to him." Lin Qingxue nodded silently, but she felt a bit uncomfortable inside. She remembered what the neighbor had said about eldest brother and second sister-in-law, so seeing eldest brother made her feel uneasy. You had a sharp eye and noticed that your wife's expression was off. You leaned in close to her cheek and asked, "What's wrong, wife? If something's bothering you, don't keep it bottled up inside." Lin Qingxue thought for a moment, but still shook her head, deciding not to say anything. Seeing that your wife didn't want to talk about it, you didn't press the matter further. Over in the main room, Li Tianxian vaguely heard someone remind them that there was someone outside, causing her face to blush as red as a monkey's butt. She slowed her footsteps, walked to the middle of the courtyard, and breathed in the fresh air. Driven by a strange impulse, she stopped in her tracks, thinking that staying at the village chief's house would be too restrictive. The master of this house didn't seem to be as the village rumors made him out to be, being that terrible. Just now when the young sister-in-law was organizing things, she clearly saw him standing there holding the child, and among those things, there were mostly household items, as well as clothes for the child and the young sister-in-law, but notably absent were any items for the man himself. While Li Tianxian was standing in the courtyard daydreaming, the little girl rocking in your arms had already fallen fast asleep. Her cute jade-like face looked so peaceful. You gently turned around and softly placed the sleeping little princess on the bed, carefully pulling up the blanket. Afterward, Lin Qingxue walked out of the room. She said to Li Tianxian, "There's a lot of dust in the room tonight, and it's quite messy. There are so many things around, so it will take him a while to finish cleaning." Hearing Qingxue's words, Tianxian turned her head and saw her blushing face. She couldn't help but recall the faint conversation she had just overheard from the couple's room. Her own face grew hot. She quickly averted her gaze and hurriedly said, "It's no trouble for brother." Lin Qingxue smiled at Tianxian and shook her head, saying, "As long as you don't mind our poor home." With that she bent down, wanting to move her daughter's small wooden bed to her own east room. Seeing this, you rushed over to help. "Wife, let me carry it. Be careful not to sprain your back." Lin Qingxue smiled, turned around and went to the west room, wanting to help clean up too. Working shirtless, you were repeatedly urged by your wife, so you had to put on a white tank top. Your muscular, well-defined arms were exposed, exuding sheer strength. The tank top covered the various scratch marks on your broad back. Completely unaware of why your wife made you wear it, you picked up some bamboo fences, planning to move them to the yard. Barely getting started, you saw your wife come in with her sleeves rolled up. You hurriedly spoke up to stop her. "You don't need to help here, it's too dusty. Hurry up and go wait in the yard." As you spoke, seeing Lin Qingxue ignoring your advice, you grew anxious. You put down the fence in your hands and pushed her outside. Your heart ached for her. With so much dust here, how could you let her come in to help? If it weren't for the upcoming house construction, which meant a bunch of grown men coming in and out, you wouldn't have let this female sent-down youth stay in your home. But then again, having Li Tianxian stay over had its perks. When you went up the mountain to hunt and gather Dendrobium, she could keep your wife company to relieve her boredom. Li Tianxian, seeing you push Lin Qingxue out, couldn't help but cover her mouth, laughing and teasing. "Sister-in-law, brother truly dotes on you." Hearing Li Tianxian's words, a blush crept on Lin Qingxue's. She smiled shyly and didn't reply. This man had really changed completely. Whenever he was home, he wouldn't let her lift a finger. Even the hot water for wiping herself at night, he would boil it and bring it into the room for her. These days, she truly felt carefully cherished. It was almost too good to be true. It felt so surreal that Lin Qi even felt a bit anxious, terrified that once the novelty wore off, you would revert to your old ways. This kept her heart on edge every day, living in constant worry of losing what she had. Her mind was now in a constant state of high tension, greedily hoping these good days could last a little longer. So she was extra careful in her words and actions, afraid of upsetting you. During meals, seeing him hand the white flour steamed buns to her, while he took big bites of the coarse grain ones. It was clearly him who hated the coarse grain ones and told her to make white flour ones. Yet, when they were ready, he didn't eat a single bite, saving them all for her. Actually, she didn't mind what she ate, as long as he could settle down and live a steady life. Just stop messing around outside, and she would be completely satisfied. Even now Lin Qingxue couldn't quite figure out why you had suddenly become so good. It wasn't like he hadn't drunkenly done terrible things before, then sobered up and hugged her to apologize, or knelt on the ground making solemn vow. Every time after a drunken rampage, he would indeed restrain himself a bit, but that only lasted for 2 or 3 days before he reverted to his true colors, and continued to go out, to mess around. She had never seen him act like he did these past few days, cooking, boiling water, and even coaxing the baby, buying clothes and shoes, getting everything fully sorted for the child. Lin Qingxue's mind was as clear as a mirror, constantly reminding herself to stay sober, and not to fall headlong into this sweet whirlpool. What if she woke up from the dream later, and reality was different from now? What would she do? But you had no idea about these complex thoughts in your wife's mind. Seeing it was getting dark, you finally finished tidying up the west room. That room was a mud tile house, always piled with sundries, and no one lived there. The newspapers on the walls were as rotten as spiderwebs, falling apart at the slightest touch. Even though it was cleaned, there was still a lot of dust inside. You nimbly set up a small bed using wood, completing the task your wife had assigned. Seeing you walk out covered in Qingxue, hurriedly picked up a towel and handed it to you. "Quick, wipe your sweat. Dinner is almost ready." You didn't reach out to take it, your tall, straight body bent down slightly, bringing your strong, handsome face close to your wife's, your hot breath spraying on her. You said, "Wife, wipe it for me." Hearing your words, Lin Qingxue subconsciously glanced at Li Tianxian, who was carrying things into the house. After she went in, she stood on her tiptoes and raised her hand to wipe the sweat off your forehead, not forgetting to remind you that there was an outsider in the house. When getting up to use the bathroom in the morning, don't go shirtless wearing only big shorts, lest the young girl feels embarrassed seeing you. Your dark, piercing eyes stared at her body so close at hand. Seeing her wiping so carefully and giving reminders about such trivial matters, your heart felt warm, although it felt a bit awkward not being able to go shirtless in your own home. Looking at your wife's serious expression, you curled your lips and gave Lin Qingxue's rosy lip a quick, light peck. You readily agreed. "I'll listen to you." Lin Qingxue was caught off guard by your sudden intimate gesture and blushed beet red. It would have been fine if it was just the two of you at home, But now there was an unmarried young woman in the house. You're really shameless. Lin Qingxue, blushing profusely, said to you. Stop dawdling. Go wash your hands and eat. She turned and went to the kitchen. You looked at your wife's retreating figure and grinned, a satisfied smile radiating on your handsome face. You walked to the well, drew a bucket of cold water, and washed up with a splash, washing your face after sweating so much. Your body felt sticky and uncomfortable. You looked around. You were the only one in the yard, taking off your tank top. You poured the bucket of cold water straight over your head. It felt incredibly refreshing. Unexpectedly, Li Tianchen just happened to come out of the house and saw this scene, looking at the shirtless man, with his back to her revealing a robust physique, well-proportioned muscles, and defined lines, with a few scratch marks on it. Li Tianchen felt her cheeks burn as she looked, and shyly turned around to go back inside. This adobe house and soundproof. It was pitch black, and dusty everywhere. Li Tianchen couldn't stand staying there for another day. Lin Qingxue heard the splashing sound of water, and walked out holding a dish. As soon as she came out, she saw you shirtless and soaking wet, looking like you had just been fished out of the water. A surge of anger flared up in her heart. She placed the dish on the stone table in the yard, stepped forward, grabbed your arm and pulled you inside. While pulling, she complained, in such cold weather. If you get sick, what will we do? You let your wife pull you into the house. Listening to her complaints, your heart felt warm, knowing she was genuinely worried about you. As you entered the inner room, Lin Sheng picked up a small blanket used for the baby, stood on her tiptoes, and carefully wiped the water from your head. She was so focused she didn't even blink, yet didn't forget to scold you. Hurry up and lower your head. She didn't notice you staring at her with a foolish grin. Hearing your wife's words, you quickly shifted your head and obediently lowered it, letting her wipe it. Wife, put on your new clothes tomorrow. I want to see how they look. As soon as you said this, Lin Qingxue's hand paused slightly and she didn't say a word. Seeing that your hair was almost dry, she walked behind you, wiping the water droplets off your back inch by inch, looking at the marks on your back. Her face flushed hotly, realizing she was never like this before. Thinking of this, Lin Qingxue's heart started racing frantically. She threw the small blanket into your arms and said, dry your front yourself. After you're clean, change your pants and come out to eat. Lin Qingxue lifted the cloth curtain and walked out, just in time to bump into Tianchen coming out of the west room. The two smiled at each other and tacitly said nothing. The 3 mud brick rooms were only the size of a palm. Whatever was said in the east room could be heard clearly in the west room. Tianen felt restless whether sitting or standing, and felt uncomfortable all over. Would it be like being roasted over a fire at night? You changed your pants, put on a gray shirt, and strode out. You sat on the stone stool next to your wife and glanced at the stone table. The scrambled eggs from the morning were barely touched, and none of the 8 pieces of meat was missing. You frowned and looked at your wife. You didn't eat this morning. Lin Qingxue had just picked up her chopsticks. Looking up to see your dark expression and furrowed brows, her heart lurched, her hand trembled, and with a clap, the chopsticks fell to the ground. She felt instantly crushed, thinking he had revealed his true colors so soon. She had actually thought he could keep up the act longer this time. The dream ended so quickly. She put down the other chopstick, avoiding your gaze, took a deep breath, and said she ate half a steamed bun and 2 pieces of egg. Her voice was calm, but her hands tightly gripped her worn-out jacket, her whole body trembling. The sound of the chopsticks hitting the ground abruptly snapped you back to reality. You sensed something was wrong, and looking closely, you saw Lin Qingxue's eyes were completely red and teary, like apricots battered by the rain. Your heart tightened, and you instantly panicked. You just felt heartache that she couldn't bear to eat. How could you have anticipated that your harsh tone would frighten her? You reached out to hug her, but she dodged. You panicked even more. The tall 1.8-meter man crouched in front of his wife, his face full of panic. Wife, I was just a little anxious. I really didn't mean to be fierce with you. As your tone softened, Lin Qingxue couldn't hold back her grievances anymore. Her tears fell patter down her face. She had truly been terrified just now, thinking you had turned back into that violent-tempered monster who would hit people. Your heart ached terribly. You grabbed her waist, carried her up, and took quick steps into the east room. Li Tianchen had just sat on the stone stool, with a confused look on her face. What on earth just happened? She was the only one left in the courtyard. Inside the room, you looked at the person in your arms with heartache. Her eyes were red from crying, and her little nose was flushed red. Your heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. Lowering your head to kiss her eyelids, you whispered softly, saying, Wife, I'm sorry. I was really wrong. I was just worried you'd save all the food for me. I got anxious and sounded harsh. Busy outside all day, and I can't keep an eye on your meals all the time. I was anxious for a moment. My tone was too harsh. Lin Qingxue felt a little more at ease, and also felt she had been a bit unreasonable just now. Having been pampered and protected by him recently, she had become a little delicate. Now that everything was out in the open, she felt even more embarrassed. Her fair fingers tightly gripped the shirt on his chest. Her eyes were slightly lowered, and she bit her lower lip. She didn't say a word. At this moment, you suddenly said without warning, What's wrong with you? Following the direction of her fingers, Lin Qingxue then noticed she must be leaking milk. Before she could reply, you thought about the recently boiled carp and tofu soup and the venison and asked, Is the baby getting enough to eat recently? Lin's fair face instantly turned red. Like a ripe persimmon, she broke free from your embrace, turned her back to you, and said with trembling voice, "You go out first. Having carp soup every day recent. I wonder if it really works. The baby has been breastfeeding these past 2 days, and hasn't had formula anymore. But even so, she still had so much milk that her breasts ached during the day. Last night, this shameless man even drank, so she hadn't felt as uncomfortable during the day. Yet she was still leaking milk now." With a flushed face, she lowered her head to unbutton her shirt, completely unaware that you were staring intently at her movements. You watched eagerly as Lin Qingxue just took off her outer shirt, only to realize this shameless man was staring at her. She immediately felt embarrassed and annoyed. "What are you doing? Get out. I need to change my clothes." You had no intention of leaving at all. You leaned in a bit closer. "Wife, the baby is asleep. It must be uncomfortable for you to be so engorged. Let me help." After saying that, without giving Lin Qingxue any chance to react, Li Tianqian sat on the stone stool outside, resting her chin on her hand. It was already dark, and the stars and moon had come out, but the couple still hadn't come out. She didn't dare to go in and check rashly, so she could only wait. After a long time, the two came out of the room. Li Tianqian noticed that the young sister-in-law had moist eyes, flushed cheeks, and extremely red, alluring lips. She must have been coaxed back into a good mood. Seeing Li Tianqian staring at her, Lin Qingxue thought of what just happened, and her face felt burning hot. She sat down, picked up chopsticks, and handed them to Li Tianqian. "Let's eat." She then handed another pair of chopsticks to the man beside her. After sitting down, you didn't spare a single glance at Li Tianqian. You took a steamed white bun and placed it in your wife's hand, while you took a coarse grain bun and took a big bite, thinking to yourself that you should find time to go to the reservoir and catch a few crucian carp to nourish your wife. How could Lin Qingxue know what her man was thinking? Worried that Li Tianqian might feel uncomfortable, she handed her a white bun. "Eat up. Don't be polite. Treat this as your own home." Li Tianqian took a small bite, wondering to herself if this family was poor or rich. If they were poor, they were eating white buns, scrambled eggs, and meat. These conditions were not inferior to the city. What the production captain's family ate this morning was black cornbread with pickled radishes. If they were rich, they lived in a 3-room mud brick house. Other than the TV bought today, there wasn't even a decent piece of furniture. The bed she slept on was just a few wooden planks, put together casually. When making the bed, she was afraid it would collapse if she turned over at night. Oh, right. During the day, she heard him tell the tractor driver that he was going to build a house. Wouldn't that mean this old house had to be torn down? Then there would even be a place to live. So why did he still let her stay? She could tell that in this big brother's eyes, there was no one else but his young wife. He clearly didn't want her living here. Just as she was lost in thought, a sound came from the room. The next second after the baby cried, you got up, letting Lin Qingxue continue eating, and strode into the room. You turned on the light and picked up your awake daughter from the crib. Lin Qingxue put down her chopsticks and reached out to take her. You dodged her hands. "You eat first. I'm not hungry yet. I'll eat later." Lin Qingxue naturally knew. He only said that so she could eat first. Having just returned and busied himself with cleaning up, how could he not be hungry? But she didn't expose him, and picked up her chopsticks to continue eating. Li Tianqian lowered her eyes, taking small bites of her steamed bun, secretly observing the couple's dynamic from the corner of her eye. She unconsciously compared it to her own family. When her 2 older brothers came back from work, they barely touched their children. When the kids cried, the sisters-in-law had to do all the work, holding a baby in one hand, while struggling to eat with the other. But right in front of her, this man was pacing the yard holding and coaxing the baby. She found it unbelievable. Lin Qingxue quickly finished her meal, took the baby from his arms, and went back to her room. As soon as she left, Li Tianqian secretly glanced at the young man opposite her. She saw him taking huge bites of his steamed bun with egg, his handsome face completely expressionless, exuding a cold aloofness. It was completely different from when his wife was around. Li Tianqian felt a bit creeped out. Sitting there, restless, she nervously stuttered, "Brother, I'm full." She gathered her bowl and chopsticks, carried them into the kitchen quickly, washed them, and went back to the west room, not daring to come out again. It was completely dark now. You sat alone in the yard and ate the remaining 4 coarse grain buns, only feeling full after drinking the noodle soup. Then you boiled a pot of water and carried the basin back to the room. "Wife, remember to wipe yourself down." Beam going to the outhouse. You placed the basin on the stand and walked out. Lin Qingxue closed the door, took off her clothes, and washed herself with the hot water. Just as she finished and put her clothes back on, she vaguely heard a noise behind the house. She thought she had misheard. But the next second, a man's voice came from outside. "Good sister, are you taking a bath?" Lin Qingxue's hair stood on end. She screamed loudly. Outside the house. You had just pulled up your pants. Hearing the scream, you quickly rushed out and caught the person who threw herself into your arms. Holding her tightly, you looked down and asked, "What's wrong?" Lin Shou hugged your waist tightly, her body trembling behind the house. "There was someone just now." You raised your dark eyes and looked outside the courtyard wall. Sure enough, seeing a head hurrying away in an instant, your deep eyes were filled with a terrifying rage. You withdrew your gaze, scooped up the person in your arms who was wearing only undergarments, and placed her on the bed. Stepping out of the bedroom, you instructed Li Tianqian, who was standing at the west room's door, "Keep an eye on her for me. I need to go out." Without another word, you strode out of the courtyard, your tall figure disappearing into the night at the east end of the village. Lazy's neighbors listened. Lazy's miserable wails, and the muffled thuds of fists hitting flesh, echoed, leaving them terrified. They all knew you were a reckless punk. A ruthless man to the core. How did Erlizy mess with you? Judging by the commotion, you hit him hard. I was really afraid you'd beat him to death. Fourth brother, I was wrong. I went to peek on the sent down youth tangent, but I swear I didn't see anything. Hearing Erlizy begging for mercy, you just dislocated his jaw. What nonsense are you spouting? You're really asking for a beating. Fourth brother, I was wrong. For Erlizy didn't even have the strength to crawl or kneel, terrified he'd be beaten to death. For a moment you really wanted to cripple him. But thinking of Lin Qingxue and your daughter, you held back. Lin Qingxue lay in bed. After an unknown amount of time, the sound of splashing water in the yard told her you were back. After taking a cold shower for 10 minutes, the door opened and closed in the dark. You thought she was asleep. So you stepped lightly and tried to get into bed in the dark, but a voice came from the bed. You're back. Lin Qingxue reached out and turned on the light. You paused, seeing her resting her head on one hand, her black hair cascading over her snow-white shoulders. Your eyes darkened. Fourth brother, reaching out to turn off the light in the darkness, you embraced her slender waist and patted her bow. Wife, go to sleep. She didn't dare to sleep before you came back. She was afraid you'd hit too hard and kill someone, and she was also afraid of the village gossip. She was terrified. Curling up in your arms like a kitten, her cheek pressed against your firm hot chest. Listening to your strong heartbeat, her sobbing slowly ceased. She didn't dare to cry loudly for fear of waking their daughter looking at her. You only felt you hadn't hit him hard enough. You thought your bad reputation would keep the village thugs away, but someone still dared to have crooked ideas. But after today, those with any ill intentions should stop. Seeing the fatigue on her husband's face, thinking of him leaving early and returning late to dig for Dendrobium to sell, giving her all the money, protecting her and comforting her. He had truly changed in the darkness. Lin Qingxue cried herself to sleep. And hearing her even breathing, you finally let out a sigh of relief. The next day Lin Qi was awakened from her sleep by voices outside. In the yard, eldest sister-in-law added a large handful of sugar to the boiled water and poured it for the workers one by one. Sugar was a rarity in those days. No family could usually bear to buy it. Cao Fengji drank a bowl of sugar water, leaned close to eldest sister-in-law and asked in a low voice, Sister-in-law, why did it sound like your younger sister-in-law was making a fuss at home yesterday? Eldest sister-in-law put down the kettle and looked at the gossipy Cao Fengji. Oh, your house is 2 miles away from his. How did you hear that? Do you have nothing better to do at night than eavesdrop under the young couple's window? Cao Fengji smiled and didn't say a word, thinking about the rumor last night that you beat Erlizy from the east side half to death and broke his leg. Coincidentally, while your city wife was making a fuss, she figured your wife must have cheated on you, and she was itching to gossip about it. Eldest sister-in-law couldn't be bothered with her. Carrying the kettle, she poured water for the others and came to your side. Winking at you, she whispered, Go check on Qingxue, she's usually up by this time. Don't let her get sick from fright. The people carrying bricks stopped what they were doing. When she woke up in the morning, she was indeed still sleeping, and there were tears under her eyes. You lifted the curtain and entered the bedroom. When you opened the door and came in, Lin Qingxue woke up. Subconsciously, you pulled her into your arms, turning your face towards the person in your arms. You said, You're awake. Get dressed first. In a bit. I'll bring the food in for you. Your voice was a bit hoarse, and the curtains were still drawn. It was noisy outside. Lin Qingxue couldn't help but ask what was making so much noise in the yard. You smiled and replied, They're rebuilding the yard wall. It's quite messy, wifey. Don't come out yet. There's still work to do outside. Then why aren't you letting me go? Not only did you not let go, you instead hugged her tighter and turned to her. You said, Kiss me once, and I'll let you go. Stop messing around, hurry, and let me go. There are people outside. How am I messing around? You're my wife. I ask you for a kiss, and you aren't even willing. Do you not like me anymore? Your tone carried a bit of aggrieved fierceness. Lin Qingxue originally wanted to explain, but in the end she didn't say anything. Leaned forward and gave a light peck on your cheek. All right. Let go now. Having been kissed by her, your handsome eyes flashed with brightness. You happily cupped her small face and kissed her back. Being bored staying in the room. I want to go out and help. You refused flatly without a second thought. If you're bored, I'll have sister-in-law come in to keep you company later. Lin Qingxue knew there was no hope of going out to help, and you wouldn't open the door. So she boredly returned to the bedroom to play with your daughter. Because there were many helpers, the yard wall was built by around 4 p.m. that afternoon. A 2-meter-high wall was covered with broken glass on top. For an average person without a ladder, it would be difficult to climb a 2-meter wall, let alone one covered with broken glass. Building a house by first constructing the yard wall was also a first in the village. Behind your house. Cao Fengji giggled. Last night when I came out to pee, I saw Erlizy sneaking out of Lin Qing's room. I bet those two have already done the deed. Zhang Hongxia gasped, No way. If it's true, it is just too shameless. The two sisters-in-law whispered and winked, their eyes showing frivolity when looking at Lin Qingxue. This scene was seen by you, who had been watching them, and you heard every single word they said. You thought to yourself that these two women really needed a beating. Uncle, these two daughters-in-law of yours are such pieces of work. Saying they came to help, when they clearly came to mooch some sugar water. Did you see Cao Fengji even brought a mug? And her mesh bag was bulging too. It seems she packed quite a bit of the snacks meant for the helpers. You pondered on how to teach them a lesson. Cao Fengji and Zhang Hongxia had be dealt with thoroughly all at once, to save future trouble. After dinner, you strolled over to your uncle Wang Dan's house. Wang Dan and his 2 sons hadn't split their household, and all lived together. When you went over, the Wang family was just having dinner. Seeing you arrive, everyone was quite surprised. Zhenguo, have you eaten? Uncle Wang Dashan asked. You replied. Aunt Shukin shoveled a bite of rice into her mouth. Seeing you walking towards them, she didn't think much of it. You walked step by step to Cao Fengji's side, and you grabbed Her hair. Your action shocked everyone present. Accompanied by Cao Fengji's scream, everyone finally snapped back to reality. Wang He jumped up abruptly. Zhengguo. Are you crazy? You smiled coldly. Why am I acting crazy? Ask your wife. Cao Fengji never expected the news to reach her ears so quickly, nor that you would come over so fast. As you scolded Cao Fengji, Liu Shiqin and Wang Dashan both had dark expressions after hearing it. The one we married into the family. Is she even a daughter-in-law? Dish is a jinx. Normally, they feared their son would pick up bad habits from Zhengguo, and repeatedly warned him to interact less with him. Yet this woman actively went looking for trouble, making things up. Cao Fengji secretly cursed you for being a bat, but she didn't know how to explain herself. Zhang Hongxia stood up. Is there some misunderstanding here? Zhengguo, let go of Cao Fengji first. She's your cousin-in-law after all. You're birds of a feather. Zhang Hongxia. You're not exactly a good person either. Sit down. Zhang Hongxia felt a bit awkward, seeing her husband Wang Yang staying silent, clearly not wanting to get involved in this mess. You raised your hand and slapped Cao Fengji across the face. Keep talking nonsense, and I'll smash your mouth. Cao Fengji was stunned by the slap. She didn't expect you to hit her, and no one in the Wang family tried to stop you. You only stopped after giving her 6 slap, and let go of her. Cao Fengji saw stars and couldn't even stand steady. She stumbled toward Wang He, but was forcefully pushed away by her own husband. Wang Dashan said slowly, you asked for it. You deserve to be beaten. Yu Shuqin glared at Cao Fengji, feeling deeply frustrated. Cao Fengji, are you out of your mind? Or can't you stand Zhengguo and his wife doing well? How dare you spout such nonsense? You're obviously trying to sow discord. No one felt sorry for her after she was beaten. I didn't say those things. Aside from denying it to the death, Cao Fengji had no other way out. You didn't say those things. Do you dare to swear? Swear that if you lie, your whole family will die. Your parents will die a horrible death, and your children will die a horrible death. Cao Fengji was too inexperienced. How could she be a match for a sly old fop? Like you, 2 sentences completely silenced her. She felt guilty. Stuttering, she couldn't say a word. Everyone now understood what had really happened. You looked at everyone present. In putting my words out there today, if I hear anyone spreading rumors in the village to ruin my relationship with my wife, don't blame me for showing no mercy. If I beat you to death or cripple you, I won't take any responsibility. As soon as you finished speaking, you kicked Cao Fengji hard twice. When he stepped forward and began kicking and punching his own wife as well. Cao Fengji's face was swollen, and she begged for mercy continuously as Wang He beat her. Still no one dared to step forward to stop the fight. You hadn't left yet. Obviously still angry. Whoever intervened would be asking for trouble. All right. After a moment, Liu Shuqin sighed. That's enough. If she gets badly hurt, we'll have to spend money on medical bills. Wang. He raised his hand and slapped Cao Fengji's face again. This strike made her mouth bleed. You snorted. Keep running your cheap mouth. Next time I'll deal with you properly. Leaving those words behind, you strode away inside the house. Besides Cao Fengji's cry, there was no other sound. Having dealt with Cao Fengji, you felt physically and mentally pleased. You chuckled and went home to find your wife. Seeing that you had left, Wang Dashan gave Uxin a look, signaling her to take the 2 daughters-in-law to the kitchen to clean up the main room. Wang Dashan, who was smoking his pipe in the main room, knocked his pipe against the table. Wang He, Wang Yang, you 2 better keep your wives in check. If there's any gossip in the village about the 4th brother's family, I won't be able to protect you. We can't afford to provoke him. I heard he's turned over a new leaf recently, but to me it seems like he's become even more ruthless. The 2 brothers, Wang He and Wang Yang, kept their heads down. They didn't dare to make a sound. With a creak, the old wooden door was pushed open. Cao Feng hurriedly closed her eyes. She hadn't even figured out what she was going to do. They had been married for months, yet there was no sign of pregnancy. Her in-laws and husband just watched her get beaten earlier without lifting a finger. What kind of people were they? Wang He came in without saying a word, sitting on the edge of the bed, lost in thought and feeling conflicted. He was far from calm. His cousin was not a simple man. His father meant not to provoke him, but his wife was quite pretty, and completely letting her go and sending her back to her parents' home was something he couldn't bear to do. For a moment, neither of them spoke a word. After a while, Cao Fengji finally said, I was wrong. Wang He was a bit surprised, not expecting the day she would admit her mistakes. Seeing that he didn't respond, Cao Fengji continued. From now on, I'll behave and live a quiet life with you. I promise I won't step out of line. Wang He stared at her for a few moments, then turned and left. Cao Fengji turned to look at his back and pursed her lips, feeling a little lost. Maybe she should take the initiative. She definitely couldn't let today's beating be in vain. Early one morning, Lin Qingxue divided the proof dough into 5 small portions. She placed them into the pan and panned them until golden brown on both sides. She was just about to tear off a small piece to taste it when she was startled by a hug from behind. You were very tall, so you had to bend down to completely wrap her in your arms, resting your chin in the crook of her neck. Lin Qingxue shrank back a little, but upon smelling the familiar scent, she relaxed. She turned her head in a daze and noticed you were staring at the food in her hands. She smiled gently and fed the flatbread into your mouth. How does it taste? It's delicious. Your smile was sincere and natural. Wife, you really don't need to get up this early. Here, I'll cook. You go comfort the baby and sleep a little longer. You have to go hunting. No. How can you go without a hot meal? All right, the past few days I saw you just grabbing some dry rations before heading out. Naturally, Lin Shu wanted to do something for you. I'm heading out. After finishing your breakfast, you put on your large boots, carried your baskets on a shoulder pole, and headed up the mountain. After walking for about 2 hours, you successfully found the Dendrobium plant and took out your tools. You got to work, leaning over until all the Dendrobium was harvested. Seeing that it was still early, you didn't head down the mountain immediately. You searched around the deadwood to try your luck, and sure enough you found a great haul. You took large strides over. Are those mushrooms? No. There are no shriveled mushrooms that bright red. Those were 4 Lingji mushrooms, of various shapes and sizes. This trip up the mountain today was totally worth it. Before, why didn't you realize this deep mountain was full of treasures? You set down the carrying basket, broke off some leafy grass to line it, and used your sharp blade to carefully cut the Lingji and place them inside. You covered them with another thick layer of grass. Just as you were about to leave, you caught sight of something near the chestnut tree out of the corner of your eye. An inconspicuous little hole. Around the entrance of the hole, scattered loose soil and tiny footprints were visible. Those were tracks left by a badger. This looks like a badger set. Badger meat was delicious. It can help nourish your wife's body. Badger oil is a precious medicinal ingredient. However, badgers are alert and cunning, so catching one directly is no easy task. You decided to try your luck with smoking it out, rummaging through your space. You found a handful of dried chili peppers. You carefully stuffed the dried chilies and dry firewood into the entrance of the burrow. Flames flickered, and thick smoke billowed up, carrying a pungent smell. As it filled the badger burrow, you stepped aside, patiently waiting. Once the badger sensed the strange smell of the smoke, it would instinctively look for an exit to escape. You had already set up a net at the entrance, just waiting for the badger to walk right into the trap. It was a bit of a gamble. Badgers are excellent diggers and their burrows are cleverly designed, often having multiple exits. You remembered Animal Planet mentioning that some badger burrows even have over 130 exits. Time ticked by slowly. The mountain forest was quiet, with only the occasional bird chirping. You stared intently at the entrance, your palms sweating slightly. After waiting for almost half an hour with no movement, you were just about to give up and put out the fire with wet branches, when there was a sound at the entrance. A furry badger head poked out, its eyes flashing with panic in the smoke. Immediately after, its whole body wriggled out of the burrow, and it rushed blindly into the net in a panic. Quick to react, you pulled the net rope swiftly, trapping the badger securely inside. This badger looked to be about 20 caddies, with a 1 in 6 chance of picking the right entrance. Catching such a creature left you feeling very satisfied. Taking some water from your space, you made sure the fire was completely extinguished, before turning around and heading down the mountain. Meanwhile, back home, several villagers, curious after hearing you bought a TV, flocked over to see what the TV the city folks talked about looked like. Throughout the day, your house was incredibly lively, with people coming and going in waves during this time. Some villagers saw Zhao Zhenguo having a pile of building materials delivered. Upon asking and finding out that you were going to build a house, they all looked surprised. They wore all sorts of expressions and made various comments. They all felt that you wouldn't be able to finish building this house, believing you didn't have that much money. They even gossiped behind your back, saying you didn't know how to manage a household, spending so much money to buy a useless iron box. It was a waste of money and electricity. Lin Qingxue was exhausted just from dealing with the villagers who came to watch TV. She felt the house was even livelier today than on their wedding day. She was just about to sit down and rest when she saw you returning, carrying the baskets. Her eyes immediately lit up. Holding the baby, she went to greet you. Why are you back so early today? As she spoke, she saw grass leaves stuffed in your bamboo basket. After the past few times, just seeing the grass in the basket made her guess there was something inside. She was somewhat puzzled as to how your luck could be this good. Wild Dendrobium was something you could only come across by chance, not seek out. Yet you managed to bring some back every time you returned from the mountain. Lin Qingxue was wearing her brand new red sweater, which made her skin look even more delicate. Her fair and tender skin temporarily dazzled you. When you walked up to her, you bent down to kiss her cheek, but she dodged with a blushing face. Lin Qingxue felt you weren't being serious, always trying to kiss her in broad daylight when Tianchen and her sister-in-law were still around. Only then did you notice that there were still a few villagers inside. Looking at your wife in confusion, Lin Qingxue saw your doubt and explained. The villagers all want to see what a TV looks like. Fortunately, my sister-in-law came over to help entertain them. You nodded and wanted to take the baby from her arms. But looking down and seeing your dirty clothes, you carried the baskets into the kitchen instead. Bending down towards your wife who had followed you in, you whispered a few words in her ear. Lin Qingxue glanced at the basket and nodded, indicating she understood. Although she didn't know how much stuff you had gathered and brought back, or why you needed to go to the city early tomorrow morning, she didn't ask too many questions. With so many outsiders in the house, how dare he get so close? The guy right in front of her had changed so much recently. Noticing his wife secretly looking at, you grinned from ear to ear, planting loud soft kisses on your wife's small cheek. A kiss on each cheek. You have to eat well today. As you spoke, your hands weren't idle either, rubbing her waist. How can it be so thin? It's probably not even 20 inches. Wife, even when not home to supervise you, you still need to eat well. You're too thin. Having her waist held by you. Lin Qingxue holding the baby playfully, just about to say that you shouldn't fool around regardless of the occasion. Then she heard her sister-in-law outside. Since the fourth brother is back, Qingxue, it'll be heading back. Old Zhao will be back from the field soon. Saying that, she started walking out. Lin Qingxue quickly called out to her sister-in-law. Wait a moment. She put the baby aside, walked out of the kitchen, went into the east room, brought out a bag of rock sugar, and stuffed it into her sister-in-law's hands. She was terrified you would speak up and stop her from giving the sugar away. It was a rare commodity. She couldn't bear to eat it herself. But if it wasn't for her sister-in-law's help, their lives would have been much harder. Her sister-in-law came to help after hearing many villagers had come to watch the excitement today. There were simply too many people. If it wasn't for her sister-in-law coming over, with so many people, how could she have managed to host them all? They used to be poor and always took advantage of her sister-in-law. Now that they were better off, she wanted to repay her. Even among sisters-in-law, they couldn't always take advantage. Sister-in-law. Zhao bought this. Take it back for the kids to eat. Her sister-in-law looked at the half-pound of rock sugar in her hands, dumbfounded, and quickly pushed it back. No. Keep it for Niu to eat. Sugar water is for entertaining distinguished guests. Ordinary families can't afford this when a new bride visits her family. If she can bring this, her family would be so proud. The two pushed it back and forth several times, and seeing that the bag was about to tear, her sister-in-law finally gave in awkwardly. She took the rock sugar and turned to go home. Lin Qingxue was afraid that her acting on her own would make you blame her. Twisting her clothes, she stammered to explain. Zhenguo, thanks to our sister-in-law coming to help. There were so many people just now, making me so dizzy and busy. I almost forgot to thank her. So I gave the sugar to her. You can blame me, but please don't ask for it back. Seeing his wife's trembling and fearful appearance, you felt a hand squeezing your heart. Your heart was breaking. Your wife still didn't trust you, constantly afraid that a wrong word would make you lose your temper. It seemed you had brought this entirely upon yourself, and couldn't escape the consequences, because you didn't speak. Lin Qingxue grew even more terrified, lowering her head like she did something wrong and muttering, Zhengguo, I won't ever do it again. Please don't be mad. You held your daughter in one arm, and pulled your wife into your embrace with the other. Some things needed to be made perfectly clear to your wife. Misunderstandings shouldn't last overnight, otherwise they would keep piling up. The most taboo thing in a marriage is not communicating properly. Without communication, everything falls apart. You patted your wife's back, rubbed your chin against her hair, and said in a very gentle tone, what? I already told you. You're the master of this house and the money. You manage it and can do whatever you want. You have the final say. It's just a bag of sugar. If you want some, we'll buy more tomorrow. You don't have to care so much about my attitude. Regarding any decision you make, I will support you unconditionally. Hearing this at first, Lin Qingxue thought you were acting out of spite, but you repeated it over and over again. It didn't seem fake, so she finally dared to believe it. Heaven knows she hadn't dared to breathe just now. Terrified you would suddenly turn on her, seeing your wife's breathing slowly steady, you finally felt relieved. It seemed that from now on, you would need to have a heart-to-heart with your wife every night. You wanted to take her to the city to relax, but you knew she definitely wouldn't want to. She was afraid that the moment you turned around in the city, you would sell off your daughter. But you felt it was best to take her out to relax right now. Wife, do you want to go for a stroll at the foot of the mountain with me? I'll catch some quail for us to have a good meal. Lin Qingxue kind of wanted to go. It wasn't that she was greedy, or craving quail. But lately you hadn't let her work in the fields to earn work points, telling her to stay home to rest and recover, and just take care of the baby. After she had given birth, she went to work in the fields the very next day. He hadn't cared about her back then, yet now he was suddenly doting on her. She didn't know what benefits he had given Wang Xuanzhu, since both laborers in their family weren't working in the field. Yet Wang Xuanzhu didn't come to rush them, seeing his wife was clearly tempted, but still hesitating, and her gaze was darting around the yard, uncertainly at the people there. You knew she was worried that if they left, their belongings wouldn't be safe. You laughed heartily. It's fine. Just wait a moment. After speaking, you carried the baby out of the kitchen. She didn't know what you said to them, but everyone in the main room came out. You even chased Li Tiantian out. Li Tiantian actually really wanted to follow the family of three to the foot of the mountain. She heard there were tigers on the mountain, and none of the sent-down youths dared to get close. But seeing that she clearly wasn't welcome, she could only wander aimlessly around the village. On the way, you noticed your wife glancing at you from time to time, hesitant to speak. You stopped walking, and looked at her with anticipation. Lin Qingxue gathered her courage and said, Zhang, can I go back to my parents' home tomorrow? We've been married for so long, and the man beside me is finally acting decent since I haven't been home all this time. So I gathered my courage to ask. I want to go back to reassure my mother, so she doesn't have to worry anymore about me marrying badly. You thought she had something huge to say after hyping herself up for so long, but it was just this, carrying your daughter with one arm, and holding your wife's hand with the other. You said, tomorrow I'll go back to your parents' home with you. You can wait for me at home. Come to think of it, you had taken quite a lot of money from your mother-in-law in the past. Tomorrow I'll go into town, and sell the Dendrobium and fleeceflower root on hand, as well as some of the meat. That should be enough to pay them back, and I'll pick up some gifts for your mother while I'm at it. Lin Qingxue never expected him to agree. Hearing him say this was a pleasant surprise, and she couldn't help but nod and smile. Not long after, you led her to a lake populated with wild ducks and stopped. We're here. In the early years, over a dozen mischievous kids had drowned in this lake. The village rumored there were water ghosts hidden inside, and that the water monkeys were extremely wicked. So most people took detours around it, and didn't dare to get close easily. You didn't believe in that nonsense. You took off your shirt and laid it on the grass, letting your wife sit on it with the baby to wait. You didn't forget to sprinkle real gar and mugwort powder to repel bugs. Lin Qingxue parted the weeds in front of her, looking at the lake reflecting the blue sky, white clouds, and surrounding woods. Her eyes lit up. The quacking of wild ducks came from the grass, making Qingxue excitedly ask you, "Is this where you caught the wild duck last time?" You nodded in response. "Then there should be wild duck eggs. This season is exactly when they lay eggs." As you pushed aside the wild grass that was taller than a person, you walked towards where the wild ducks were quacking. Before getting close, the wild ducks in the grass noticed the movement and flew away flapping their wings. Lin Qingxue rubbed her nose embarrassed. "Oh, the wild ducks have all run away. You had brought her out to relax anyway, so it didn't matter." You said, "It's fine. You rest here while I go find them and drive them back." You walked into the bushes yourself and searched carefully. Sure enough, you found many wild duck nests, made of dry grass and down feathers, with plenty of gray-green wild duck eggs lying inside. You picked up a few and went back to show her. Since you had left home empty-handed, Lin Qingxue was now fretting over the wild duck eggs, wondering how to bring them back. With only 4 hands, you could barely carry a dozen at most, and there were still many more left behind. For someone as frugal as her, it was too much of a pity. Lin Qingxue stood on tiptoe and scanned the lake. Seeing many chaste tree branches growing around, she hurriedly handed her daughter to you. "Help me hold our daughter. I have an idea." She took out a small knife to cut the branches. Once you understood her intention, you placed your daughter safely on a tree branch, took out your knife as well, and helped cut them. "Wife, I can cut them myself. You might hurt yourself if you're not used to it. Just hold our daughter. And wait." Your movements were extremely fast, and in no time you gathered a pile of branches. After finding a flat spot and stripping the green leaves, Lin Qingxue laid out the branches and began to weave. You could only stand to the side, watching, unable to help at all. Lin Qi soon wove a basket. Suddenly, as if remembering something, she looked up at the sky and asked if you were hungry. You shook your head, indicating you weren't. Lin Qingxue rubbed her stomach. "I'm sorry, but am a little hungry." You hurriedly said, "I'll go hunt and roast a bird for you, no need." Lin Chu steamed buns out of her cloth bag. "I brought steamed buns. We can eat them once they're heated. Have some too." You glanced at the cloth bag and took the steamed buns. Lin Qingxue smiled, her eyes curving as she cut dry grass by the lake to make a small and placed the steamed buns over the fire to heat up. You watched the fire. I'll continue on the side, weaving the basket without a moment's rest. Her hands moved so quickly. Just as the aroma of the roasted steamed buns burst forth, the basket was finished. She leaned in front of you to show off. "Look, isn't my weaving pretty?" "It's very pretty. My wife's hands are so skilled." You looked up at her, took down the roasted steamed buns and handed them to her to eat. Lin Qingxue set down the basket, washed her hands with lake water, and the two of you sat on a dead tree by the lake, eating the roasted steamed buns bite by bite in the mountain breeze and autumn sun. After you finished eating, you got up, picked up the basket, and went into the bushes alone to pick wild duck egg. Because the mountain forest had been unvisited for years, the wild ducks had few natural enemies and bred well. While Lin Qingxue was eating, you managed to pick a whole basketful in just that short time, and it looked like you could pick 2 more baskets. Got 1 basket and wasn't greedy for more. "These are enough. Wait here for a bit. I'll go deeper in to see if I can hunt any other prey." You plunged headlong into the forest. Lin Qingxue held the child, her gaze fixed on the man in the distant bushes, occasionally seeing him poke his head out, lie flat on the ground, and move carefully when he crawled through the grass. Her heart also leapt into her throat with such deep could there be snakes? What if he gets bitten by a snake? The more she thought about it, the more she regretted letting him go. The wait became agonizingly long and she grew anxious. When he poked his head out again, she anxiously shouted into the bushes, "Come back quickly. Don't want to eat quail anymore." Because the distance was too far, you didn't hear her at all, and plunged straight into the woods again. Qingxue became even more restless. Holding the baby, she bent down, picked up the shirt from the ground, clutched it in her hand, and stood at the foot of the mountain, staring intently into the distance. Because you brought your wife along, and were only at the foot of the mountain, you didn't use a shotgun, but used a slingshot instead. This frame was no ordinary item. It was made of rebar heated and bent into after countless times of polishing and tuning. The bowstring, specially made from premium cowhide, felt substantial in your hand. Heavy in your grip, your eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, staring fixedly at the sky to search for a target. Finally, in the last glow of the setting sun, a wild goose slowly into sight, flapping its wings. It seemed eager to return to its nest. "You're the one." You took a deep breath, steadied your mind, and slowly raised the slingshot. A slingshot's range is limited, and the wild goose was flying very high. But you had your own method, starting with a triple shot. The first stone flew towards the target. The second stone followed closely, and struck the first one. The third stone immediately hit the first 2, whistling through the air as it chased that figure about to disappear into the horizon. In the end, propelled by the impact of the latter 2, the first stone accurately hit the wild goose's wing. The wild goose botted violently, lost its balance, spiraled in the air and fell helplessly. A surge of indescribable excitement and pride welled up in your heart. You gripped the slingshot tightly, your eyes following the wild goose's descent, until it landed steadily on the grass not far away. When you walked down carrying the wild goose, you saw your wife holding the baby and rushing up the mountain. Seeing this, your heart leaped into your throat. The mountain path was very slippery. You quickly called out to stop her from the danger. "Don't go up." The sudden voice startled Lin Qingxue, making her stop immediately. Her voice trembling slightly, she shouted at you, "Come down quickly. Don't want to eat quails anymore. I'll never eat them again." Come down immediately. As she spoke, her eyes turned red. You had been hiding in the bushes, watching the wild goose gradually fall still. Heaven knows that at that moment, how terrified she was. Afraid you would meet with an accident deep in the mountains. What would she do if that happened? She couldn't even bear to imagine it. You also noticed something was wrong with your wife. You lost all mood for hunting, and quickly replied, I'm coming out now. Stand there and don't move. Saying that, you hurried down to the foot of the mountain. Carrying the wild goose, you strode over to your wife, stared at her red eyes, and asked, What's wrong? Are you cold? Let's go home. Lin Qingxue said nothing, turned around and walked ahead holding the baby, her unease and fearful heart unable to calm down for a long time. You had no idea why your wife was suddenly upset. She was perfectly fine when you left the house. But in just a short while, her mood had completely changed. You tried to strike up a conversation several times, wanting to ask for your jacket and pants back. But seeing your wife's long face, holding the baby, without even giving you a straight look, you had no choice. You could only walk bare-chested in your big shorts, carrying the wild goose and a basket of duck eggs behind your wife, passing by Old Man Li's door. Old Man Li was squatting on the threshold smoking his pipe. Seeing Zhao IV's wife walking ahead with the baby, while clutching his clothes in her hand, and then seeing the tall, over 1.8-meter Zhao IV following submissively behind his wife like a frostbitten eggplant, he wondered why he had never noticed before that a man who strutted around outside like a crab could be so meek. Seeing Zhao Lassi in front of his wife, acting so cowardly, as the young couple walked over, Old Man Li couldn't help but tease, Lassi, what's wrong? Did your wife scold you? You craned your neck to take a look, but she didn't look back at you. You only caught a glimpse of her fair neck, slightly exposed. You quickly looked away, smiled at Old Man Li, and didn't dare to say a single word. The two of you walked home one after the other. You dropped the wild goose on the ground and hurried to step forward to open the gate. Once it was open, you sensibly stood aside, waiting for your wife to go in before bending down to pick up the wild goose and follow her inside. Lin Qingxue almost amused by your funny behavior. She managed to hold back her laughter and sat on a stool in the yard with the baby in her arm. It was then that she realized she was still holding your shirt, and you were bare-chested wearing only your pants. Walking all the way back just like that, she suddenly remembered Old Man Li's teasing words just now. Why was she throwing a tantrum at him? Even forgetting to give him his clothes? She stole a glance at him. Seeing that he wasn't mad, he was quietly drawing water, so she got up and said to you, Don't wash with that cold water. It'll get you some warm water. As she spoke, she struggled to open the door with one arm around their daughter, wanting to put her inside, on the little bed. Hearing your wife speak to you on her own initiative, you immediately perked up. You turned your head, saw her struggling with the door while holding their daughter, and quickly put down the basin. You walked over in a few steps, went behind your wife, inserted the key into the keyhole, and instantly unlocked the door. You looked down at your wife in your arms, feeling overjoyed. You looked at your daughter and said, It'll take a quick shower and then cook for you. Lin Qingxue didn't say a word. As soon as the door opened, she carried the sleeping baby inside, put her on the little bed, tucked her in with the small quilt, and lifted the curtain to walk out. She saw the man bare-chested, splashing coal all over himself, looking at him. She lost all her temper. Thinking, let him freeze to death, she walked over, picked up his shirt from the stool, and just sat there, waiting for him to finish washing and go inside. Lin Qingxue took his clothes, walked to the well, drew a bucket of water, and began to wash his shirt and pants. As she washed, she wondered if, when they went to the city tomorrow, she should take their daughter to town first, to pick out some thicker clothes for him. It's already autumn, and the weather is getting colder by the day, yet he still wears that thin shirt all day long. Running into the mountains. Before dawn. The mountains in the early morning are heavy with dew and cold. Doesn't he feel the cold? Every day he comes with mud spots on his pants, and his shirt covered in mud, probably from lying on the ground digging up herbs. You took a quick shower, your tall and sturdy body dripping wet. Bringing a chill, you took large strides and bent down to enter the house. You grabbed the towel your wife used and roughly wiped off the water, changed into a clean set of clothes and came out again. Seeing that the clothes you wore today had already been washed, your heart felt warm. It feels so good to have someone wash your clothes, and it feels so good to have a wife. You gutted the wild goose you just caught, cleaned the organs, and decided to stir-fry half and make soup with the other half for your wife. When Lin Qingxue came back, she happened to see you preparing a bird while her sister-in-law was hanging up your shirt and pants. This scene once again refreshed her impression of you. Just as Lin Qingxue put down her rice bowl, Auntie Zhang from the east end of the village came rushing over. Her daughter was about to get married, and she needed someone literate to read the gift list. For a refined matter like a gift list, she naturally thought of Lin Qingxue. Hurry over and call him to help. Li Tianxian didn't want to be alone with a grown man, to avoid village gossip, so she went along to help out after dinner. You began preparing badger oil. This is a precious medicinal material, with excellent moisturizing and skin repairing properties. It has a remarkable effect on treating burns and frostbite. You looked outside at the pitch-black night, where you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. You locked the door, held the baby in your arms, and crossed half the village to Auntie Zhang's house. When Lin Qingxue saw you coming with the child, she thought something went wrong, and quickly put down her work. She walked up to you, looked down at the baby in your arms and asked, What's wrong? At this, you looked at your wife and smiled. Nothing. Just came to check on you, saying that you found a small stool and sat right down. Auntie Zhang, being perceptive, caught on and grinned from ear to ear. She said to Lin Qingxue, "Your husband is afraid of you walking in the dark, and is worried about you. So he came specifically to pick you up." Hearing Auntie Zhang's words, Lin Qingxue glanced at the man sitting on the stool, wondering if it was really true. Auntie Zhang just loves to tease people. How can I take it seriously? Even if he didn't say it out loud. Isn't he sitting right here? He didn't have to come all this way. Thinking of this, Lin Qingxue said to the man sitting on the stool, "You sit and rest for a bit. It'll be done soon." After speaking, she returned to the table, and lowered her head to work. You replied with a as you spoke. Your eyes were glued to your wife, staring intently at her every move. At this time, Zhang Tijun, munching on a cornbread, pulled up a stool and sat beside you. "Fourth brother, I think sister-in-law is really great. Prettier than Sister Hui. Educated and well-mannered." Hearing Zhang Tijun's words, you froze for a moment, taking a long while to process it, wondering who Zhang Hui was. You were puzzled, wondering why Tijun suddenly brought her up. Seeing you not saying a word, Zhang Tijun thought you were still pining for Zhang Hui, which made him anxious. If that's the case, then sister-in-law is truly being wrong. Sister-in-law is completely devoted to you, Brother Zhenguo. Even when the family is dirt poor, she's still dead set on living with you. What a deep bond. Thinking of this, Zhang Tijun started to advise. "Fourth brother, you shouldn't think about her anymore. Just live a good life with sister-in-law. I heard Sister Hui is dating someone in the city, apparently working in the kitchen of a state-run restaurant. Every time she comes back, she acts so snobbish, not even looking people in the eye." His tone full of dissatisfaction. Zhang Tijun despised Zhang Hui from the bottom of his heart, feeling that she relied on her slight beauty to be incredibly arrogant, looking down her nose at everyone when speaking. As for looks, Zhang Hui couldn't compare to fourth brother's current wife. Zhang Tijun dreamed of having fourth brother's good fortune, marrying a fair and beautiful wife. Just look at sister-in-law's figure. Where does she look like someone who's had a baby? She's as fresh and tender as a newly picked cucumber, making people itch just looking at her. Which shameless person spread rumors that I fancy that kind of person? That kind of trash isn't even fit to carry my shoes, whether in my past life or this one. When have I ever looked her straight in the eye? Such groundless nonsense. How did it become the talk of the entire village? If my wife hears this, it'll cause a huge misunderstanding. Just now you kept looking at your wife, but she didn't even glance at you from start to finish. This made you feel even worse. Being so close, she couldn't possibly not have heard. Does my wife really not care about me anymore? Thinking of this, your heart felt heavy, and you didn't give Zhang Tijun a good look either. When did I ever think about her? Which eye of yours saw me thinking about her? Seeing your fierce reaction, Zhang Tijun was scared like a coward, and quickly put on an apologetic smile. "Fourth brother, I was just saying it casually. Why are you getting so angry?" Deep down he was still very afraid of you. You were after all a notorious hooligan in these parts. People would tuck their tails and take a detour when they saw you. If you hadn't saved sister-in-law, how could you have married such a good woman? You looked at his cowardly appearance, clearly not believing him, and couldn't be bothered to waste your breath on him. You snapped, "Get the hell out." Zhang Tijun grabbed his stool and scurried off. Their entire conversation was heard loud and clear by Lin Qingxue. She clenched her hands tightly, until her knuckles turned white. No wonder he's been acting like a different person lately. So he's been hiding it in his heart. He has a new lover, and that's why he's acting nice, just to shut me up. Lin Qingxue felt a surge of sorrow and excruciating pain in her heart. On the way home, you were holding the baby in your arms, while a third wheel tagged along. Li Tianqian watched eagerly, as you followed behind your wife to explain. "Wife, don't listen to Zhang Tijun's nonsense. I have absolutely nothing to do with that Zhang Hui. I don't even care for her type. You're the only one in my heart," you said with a sincere tone, practically swearing a deadly oath to the heavens. Li Tian, trailing a few steps behind, had her ears perked up like antennas. She listened curiously to this good drama. She watched your tall figure walking beside your wife, bent over like a shrimp. How afraid was he of his wife misunderstanding him? Did this count as lacking authority? Being completely henpecked, since your wife still ignored you, you felt very anxious. Unable to figure out what she was really thinking, you could only hang your head and silently follow her home. After arriving home, you gently placed the sleeping baby in the crib, tucked her in, and then walked away dejectedly like a frostbitten eggplant. Boiling water in the kitchen, your tall body squatted by the stove opening. Holding a stick, you poked the fire and cursed inwardly. "If I find out who the loudmouth is, spreading rumors behind my back, it'll be him. Until his own mother won't recognize him. Damn it. They must have too much free time, with nothing better to do. Why spread such gossip? Isn't this just asking for trouble?" Meanwhile, Lin Qingxue was sitting on a stool in the east room, carefully sewing stitch by stitch a winter padded jacket for their daughter. It didn't take long before you walked in carrying a basin of steaming water. With large strides, you bent down and gently placed the basin by your wife's feet. Then you squatted down, and your large hands grabbed her slender ankles, while your other hand gestured to take off her shoes. This action made Lin Qingxue stop her needlework. She looked up at the man squatting in front of her and asked, "What are you doing?" Saying so, she tried to pull her ankle back, but his grip was very strong, so she couldn't break free at all. His rough, warm palm rubbed against the skin of her ankle, making it feel a bit ticklish. She used to be able to figure out his temper, but now she couldn't see through him at all. What on earth was he thinking? Keeping your head down, you didn't stop your actions. You took off the cloth shoes from your wife's feet, and said in a muffled voice, "Wifey, you've been tired all day. Let me soak your feet." to help you relax. Seeing that she couldn't break free, Lin Qingxue simply gave up. With her struggling eyes slightly lowered, she quietly watched the man in front of her, letting him take off the shoes on her feet, as her feet were pressed into the hot water basin, with a moderate temperature. Her heart also warmed up. Your changes these past few days have been huge, especially now that you are actually volunteering to wash her feet. This was something she wouldn't have dared to dream of in the past. Yet it actually happened, even when she was pregnant, carrying a big belly. And it was so inconvenient. She never saw him act like this, greed bred in her heart, indulging in the gentle care he brought her. Thinking of this, she looked at the man squatting in front of her, washing her feet, and said, Zhengguo, I'm not angry with you. As long as you don't mess around anymore, I'll be fully satisfied. Fair fingers slid into your short hair, the soft finger pad, gently rubbing it. Hearing her words, you didn't utter a sound, silently rubbing your wife's feet, when her fair and tender feet were almost clean, and the water temperature didn't feel as hot. You took her feet out, placed them on your thighs, and tucked the wet feet under your clothes. Then you reached out to take the towel draped on your shoulder, pulled out the feet tucked in your clothes, and wiped them dry. Then you bent over, scooped up the person on the chair, and walked over to place her on the bed. It's late. Stop working. Watch out for your eyes, you said as you swung your legs up onto the bed. Wife, I know I was a jerk before and did a lot of bad things to you. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but you have to give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. Please believe me, okay? These words of yours made Lin's stiff body gradually relax. The breath entering her nose was filled with your warm scent, mixed with clean and refreshing hormones, which made Lin Qingxue's heart feel warm. After a long while, she murmured a barely audible response, even though her voice was tiny and imperceptible. You heard it early the next morning before dawn. You got up, headed to town, and caught the earliest bus to the city. This time you didn't go to the same pharmacy to sell the deer products and such. Selling these treasures too frequently at the same pharmacy might get you targeted by people with ulterior motives. So you simply went to another one. The manager of another pharmacy, upon seeing what you were selling, was sure you were the young man who had recently sold valuable goods and welcomed you inside with a smile. In a private room, after carefully examining them, he found no issues with the items you brought. Although he didn't know how you got such prime goods, he had heard of you, so he didn't lower the price. You didn't expect things to go so smoothly. Counting thick stack of 10 yuan bills in your hand to confirm the amount. You tucked them into your spatial pocket and entered the state-run department store. You were planning to pick some nutritional supplements for your mother-in-law, but unexpectedly ran into a great benefactor from your past life, Secretary Wang. Only you didn't know why he appeared in this small county town. Seeing him still so young, and in his prime evoked memories of your past life. In less than 10 years, this man would enter city and be promoted to the top position. You originally wanted to greet him, but in this life you hadn't met yet, and didn't know each other. Going up rashly to greet him would seem very strange. After some thought, you decided against it. If destined you meet him again in his city, after all, for your future development, you would still choose a city, the place where you lived for decades in your past life. When you picked out the items and were ready to leave, you heard a commotion over by Secretary Wang, with a crowd gathered around watching the scene. You stopped in your tracks, turned around, and walked towards that direction. The sales clerk at the counter was tugging on the sleeve of Wang Xinjun, who wore a yellow jacket, and yelling loudly, Hey, why are you so unreasonable? You broke something, and want to leave without paying the full price. Wang Xinjun had just turned around when his clothes caught on the inside of the counter, causing Atone watch to fall to the floor and break. He was an educated man, looking at the sales clerk's unreasonable behavior. Zhang Hong. Before I could even explain, comrade, you misunderstood. I wasn't trying to run away. I don't have enough money, but my car is right outside. I'll go out, get and bring it to you. Here is my work id. I'll leave it with you as a deposit. The counter clerk took his eye, glanced at it, and said with a look of disdain, You made a fake it. Who are you trying to fool here? If you walk out that door and run away, who am I supposed to hold accountable? Are you expecting me to pay for it myself? Saying so, she casually threw the on the floor. You bent down, picked up the work id from the floor, and handed it to Wang Xinjun. You looked at the female clerk and asked, How much is it? I'll pay for him. The female clerk looked you up and down, and laughed with absolute contempt. Do you know how much this costs? You country bumpkins just flap your lips and spout nonsense. It's 127.50 yuan in total. Hand over the money. Saying so, she held out her hand. Without another word, you pulled a stack of 10 yuan bills from your pocket and handed it to the female clerk. Give me the change. Looking at the money in her hands, the female clerk was shocked and bewildered. She counted it repeatedly, and then nodded. She said, All right, comrade. Please wait a moment. Seeing there was no more drama to watch, the surrounding crowd let out a collective sigh and dispersed. Wang Xinjun pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose and looked at the man in front of him, who was a head taller. With so many people watching just now, not a single person was willing to speak up for him. Yet this man helped him out without a second thought. Looking at his clothes, he didn't seem wealthy. This amount of money was definitely not a small sum for him. Thinking of this, Wang Xinjun felt immensely grateful to this stranger. There are still many good people in the world. Thank you so much for bailing me out just now. I have money in my car and it's parked just outside. Please come with me to get it. You nodded and walked out with Wang Xinjun. Sure enough, there was a black sedan parked on the side of the road. To be driving a sedan in this era, it seemed the rumors about his background being profound were true. Wang Xinjun opened the car door, took out a bag from the car, counted out the money and handed it to you. Young brother. Thank you again. Where are you heading? Bill give you a ride. You took the money. And without even counting it, stuffed it into your pocket. Thinking about all the things you were carrying. Taking the bus really wouldn't be as convenient as taking his car. So you didn't politely decline. Then it'll have to trouble you. You then gave Wang Xinjun your home address and got into the passenger seat on the way. The two of you who had no interaction in daily life chat, there was no awkwardness at all. On the contrary, it was like two old friends who hadn't seen each other in years. You hit it off perfectly. Wang Xinjun originally thought this young man was just an ordinary person, but during the chat he found out that wasn't the case at all. This man seemed unfathomable. Despite his youth, he possessed a composure far beyond his years. He felt that this man was not as simple as he appeared on the surface, and couldn't help but form a thought. Perhaps this person would achieve great things in the future. The car arrived at the courtyard gate. You leaned over, stepped out of the car, and then took the supplements you bought for your mother-in-law out of the trunk. You bent down and said to Wang Xinjun in the car. Wang Xinjun smiled and replied, "No problem, brother. We'll meet again if it's meant to be." As he spoke, he took a glance at the dilapidated mud brick house behind you, then turned the car around and drove away. You carried your things and went inside. You caught sight of your wife at first glance, holding a man's coat in her hand. You walked up and placed the things you were carrying on the table. Seeing your wife trying to hide the clothes behind her back, you quickly snatched the blue jacket from her and grinned, "Wife, did you buy this for me?" As you spoke, you put the coat on. Seeing you put the coat on with the collar not set right, Lin Qingxue subconsciously stepped forward, stood on her tiptoes, raised her arms and reached out to adjust the collar for you. After adjusting it, she took a few steps back and looked you up and down. The shoulder width and size were a perfect fit, just like it was tailor-made. She hesitated for a moment, then explained, "I saw that the weather is getting cold, so I took our daughter to town and bought you a new jacket." Hearing this and seeing her evasive eyes, you understood that she lacked confidence and was worrying about this and that. You felt incredibly joyful inside. It was the first time she had proactively bought you clothes. This was a first. You took a step forward, reached out and pulled her into your arms. "Thank you, wife, I really like this jacket." As you spoke, you suddenly realized there was a huge third wheel in the room. Li Qianchen was holding the baby in her arms, staring with eyes wide as brass bells as you kissed your young sister-in-law, and she was completely stunned. Such a big person standing right here in the room. "Did you really not see me again?" "I just saw something I shouldn't have. Will I get a sty? When will I ever be able to return to the city?" As you were distracted kissing your own wife, she stood there blushing, squeezed out a fake smile, and carrying the baby, hurried into the west room where she lived. Lin Qingxue, breathless from your kiss, leaned softly against your firm chest. Listening to your strong heartbeat, she asked softly, "Have you eaten? Are you hungry? I'll cook for you." You put your arm around your wife and went into the east bedroom, then gently sat her down on a stool and took out the cloth bag you kept close to your body. "Take this and put it away safely." Lin Qingxue looked up at the man, then looked away, and opened the cloth bag that still carried your body heat. When she saw that it was filled with 10 yuan bills, she quickly clutched the bag tightly and nervously glanced at the door. After making sure no one was outside the cloth curtain door, she finally stood up and lowered her voice. "Why is there so much?" she asked, her voice trembling with a hint of fear. "The money you bring back gets more and more each time. Both I'm really afraid you're doing something illegal behind my back." Looking at your wife's adorable expression, you couldn't help but laugh. "This is just the beginning. There will only be more money in the future." You sighed softly. The happiness now felt like a dream. You squatted in front of your wife and looked her in the eyes. "All right, wife. If you feel uneasy next time I go to the city, you can come along with me, okay? You'll see where the money comes from, and then you won't worry." Hearing you say this, Lin Qi stared intently at the man in front of her for a long while, before finally nodding. Seeing her agree, you couldn't resist leaning in and kissing her on the forehead again, before saying, "All right, you go get ready. Leave me 200 yuan, and I'll go borrow a bicycle later. I'll take you back to visit your parents." With that, you turned around, lifted the curtain, and walked out. After you went out, Lin Qingxue stared at the thick stack of 10 yuan bills in her hands. She scanned the room with her eyes, feeling that nowhere was safe enough to hide it, leaving her feeling uneasy. She hid alone in the room, searching for several spots, but felt they were all unsafe. She checked the places where she used to hide money again and counted it. Speaking of walking there, you began to worry again, not knowing where it would be safe to hide this sum of money. Since you couldn't borrow a bicycle, you returned to the courtyard, sat down heavily on a stone block, took a cigarette out of your pocket, struck a match, lit the cigarette, took a deep drag, and slowly exhaled the smoke. Thinking about taking your wife and child out, without a proper mode of transport, just wouldn't do, even if you had to rely on your own 2 legs. To walk. No matter how far, it wouldn't matter. But you couldn't let your wife and child suffer alongside you. You originally wanted to borrow a bike to take them to her family's home. But you forgot that this kind of thing, in this day and age, is incredibly precious. People can barely bear to ride their own, so how could they possibly lend it to outsiders? You were so focused on building a house and improving your living conditions that you completely forgot about needing a mode of transport. After Lin Qingxue hid the money securely, she walked out of the house, seeing you sitting in the courtyard smoking, and not seeing a bicycle. She knew you hadn't borrowed one and said, "We can just walk back. We always walked back before." You nodded, and replied in a muffled voice. You put out your cigarette, determined to make more money quickly. There are just too many things to buy for the house. Around 2 p.m., Mother Lin was washing clothes in the courtyard. A neighbor walked in, and excitedly shouted, "Auntie, stop washing. I just saw your daughter and son-in-law coming back." Most of the village knew exactly what kind of scumbag her daughter had married. Upon hearing the neighbor's words, Mother Lin quickly stood up, wiped her hands on her apron, and hurriedly walked out, wondering if they were coming to ask for handouts again. She arrived at the door and saw her daughter and son-in-law walking toward their house. She wondered why the two of them came together today, and seeing her son-in-law carrying bags big and small, she walked up to them anxiously. First observing them carefully, she saw her daughter wearing a brand new outfit, her youthful fair face beaming with a smile, looking completely different from her previously gloomy self. The heart that had been in her throat finally settled down, seeing her son-in-law carrying malted milk extract, canned fruits, such a huge chunk of meat, a pheasant, and quite a few duck eggs. She knew at a glance it must have cost a lot of money. Thinking about their family's poor condition, she couldn't help but gently scold, "Coming back to your own home. It's enough that you two are here. Why bring so many things?" As she spoke, she quickly took the baby from her daughter's arms. Lin Qingxue wore a faint smile and said nothing. "In the past you always came empty-handed and left fully loaded this time. It was the very first time since your marriage that you brought gifts to her family." Along the way, even though she didn't say anything, she felt an indescribable joy in her heart. "Looking at your mother-in-law in front of you," you respectfully called out. "Mom." Mother Lin felt a shudder in her heart at your address and forced an unnatural smile. Quickly ushering you inside, the neighbors gathered around to watch the commotion. Seeing the transformation in the two of you, they couldn't believe their eyes for a moment. Both husband and wife were good-looking, and now dressed in these outfits, anyone who didn't know better would think you two were rich city folks coming down to the countryside to visit relatives. But, as neighbors, they knew better than anyone else. Your family was dirt poor, and money was incredibly tight. Mother Lin led her son-in-law and daughter indoors. The surprised expressions on the neighbors' faces just now were seen crystal clear by her, and she felt so proud, finally able to hold her head high, because her daughter had a hard life after marriage. She had been the laughingstock of many, but now she could finally feel vindicated. Looking at her daughter's outfit, no longer those old ill-fitting clothes from before, but brand new clothes from head to toe. He was even wearing rubber-soled shoes, which looked high-end at first glance. And looking closer, her son-in-law no longer had that impatient, petty look. Now, his every movement exuded changed so much that she could hardly recognize him. No wonder her daughter said he had changed. It seemed he had genuinely turned over a new leaf. After sitting down, Lin Qingxue asked, "Mom, where's my brother?" Lin's mother looked down, smoothed the little clothes of the baby in her arms, and smiled, replying, "He took the kids to town. I reckon he'll be back soon." As soon as she finished speaking, they saw Lim Minglong pushing a 28-inch bicycle, returning covered in dust. On his way, he had heard villagers say that his sister had brought her baby over. He wondered if you had been acting like a jerk again. If it weren't for that, why would his sister marry this penniless man, Zhao Zhenguo, who only had the title of her savior to his name? He parked his 28-inch bicycle and went inside. Taking a look, and seeing that you were also there, his face immediately darkened. Lin's mother saw her son, and looking at his face, she understood exactly what was going on. She quickly tried to smooth things over. "Zhenguo bought a bunch of stuff to visit me." Lin Mingliang glanced at the miscellaneous items on the table, and couldn't help but snort coldly. He pulled over a stool, and plonked himself down. Burning with anger, he wanted to harshly scold brother-in-law, but he was afraid of upsetting his mother. You knew that all the bastardly things you had done in the past had made your brother-in-law harbor a lot of resentment towards you, so you didn't expect to be treated well. Therefore, Lin Mingliang's attitude didn't surprise you at all. At this moment, Jia Yan walked in carrying a child. Upon seeing her younger brother, a trace of sorrow flashed in her eyes, but she still forced a smile, wondering if her brother had come to ask for a handout again. Every time he came, it was either to borrow money or to borrow things, which made her unable to hold her head up high in her in-laws' family. Although her husband had never gotten angry with her over Zhenguo's matters, precisely because of this, she felt even more ashamed. She wanted to say that the last time you borrowed money, you even beat up her husband, but she swallowed the words before they left her mouth. Seeing the sorrow in your third sister's eyes, you felt terrible inside, knowing exactly why she felt that way. Over the past 2 years or so, your third sister had had a hard time at her in-laws because of you. You remembered that in your previous life, after your wife jumped into the river with your daughter, your family completely cut ties with you. Only third sister, when you left, secretly slipped you 21 and a few warm boiled eggs. Therefore, when you later became rich, you were afraid she would be put in a difficult position with her in-laws because of you, so you didn't dare contact her. Later, you heard from a fellow villager that your sister and brother-in-law wanted to start a small business. So you bought the storefront they had their eyes on and rented it to them for dirt cheap. For a moment, the room fell into silence. Lin Qingxue also sensed that the atmosphere was a bit off. Over the past 2 years or so, their family had indeed barely survived by relying on her mother's family. She patted her pocket and pulled out a stack of 10 yuan bills. She had known earlier what you wanted her to hold the money for. On the way here, you told her these 200 yuan were to repay the debts owed to her mother and brother. When Lin's mother heard this, she was quite surprised. In the past, when this guy borrowed money, it was like throwing a meat bun at a dog. It never came back. She had never expected him to repay the borrowed money, and just hoped he would cause less trouble. "Mom, Jingguo asked me to give this to you." As Lin Qingxue spoke, she stuffed the money into her mother's pocket. Seeing so much money, Lin's mother started to panic. She quickly freed a hand from holding the baby and shoved the money back to her daughter. "Put it away quickly. Carrying so much money on you. What if you lose it?" Her tone carried a hint of reproach. You didn't expect your mother-in-law to react so strongly, so you quickly said, "Mom, you must take this money. I was immature in the past, but from now on Qingxing and I will live a good life. If you don't accept it, I won't feel at ease. Mother Lin's pupils trembled slightly. She couldn't understand what had happened in such a short time. That could make a person turn over a new leaf. She looked at her daughter and saw her smiling, signaling her to take the money. Only then did she apprehensively pocket the money. Mamas will save this money for you two first. Come to me anytime you need it, Mother Lin said. Lin Mingliang was also completely confused as he looked at you, muttering to himself. He then looked at his sister, who was dressed brightly and beautifully, with a spark in her eyes, no longer looking lifeless. Since my sister said so, I'll trust you one more time. Then he turned and told his wife Yaner to prepare some snacks to go with the drinks. Hearing that they were going to drink, Lin Qingxue immediately became a little anxious. Little brother, we still have to head back later, with so much money left at home, and no one keeping an eye on it. I just don't feel at ease. Besides, she was afraid that you would drink too much and start acting crazy again. Lin Mingliang waved his hand. It's fine. Sister, we'll just have a little. It won't delay your trip home. Seeing that she couldn't reason with her brother, Lin Qingxue just looked at you, hoping you wouldn't drink. You caught your wife's signal, grinned, and flashed a mouth full of white teeth. It's okay. Honey, don't you worry at all. I know my limits. Lin Qingxue felt a bit displeased upon hearing this, glared at you, then took her nephew from her sister-in-law's arms. She sat aside as if in a fit and didn't say another word. Jia Xian got busy, then set up a table for them in the yard, and brought out the liquor her husband had stashed away. The two men poured the drinks without saying a single word of nonsense, clinked their bowls together, and downed them in silence. Sitting in the main room, Lin Qingxue held her little nephew, absent-mindedly. Still worried, she occasionally glanced outside. Seeing the way her brother and you were drinking, she felt a bit restless. Mother Lin took in every move of her daughter, seeing her care so much about you. It seemed the young couple had been getting along well these days. Seeing her like this, she finally felt truly relieved. The two grown men in the yard had a bowl of liquor and finally started to open up. Lin Mingliang let out a breath smelling strongly of alcohol. His cheeks were unusually red and his eyes were a bit glazed. He raised his arm, slung it over your shoulder, and said, Brother-in-law, today, for the sake of my sister, I am willing to sit here and drink with you. The past unpleasantness, I won't bring it up. I just hope that from now on, you treat my sister well. Otherwise, I will risk my life and won't let you off. The Lin siblings had a deep bond in your previous life. After Lin Qingxue had jumped into the river, Lin Mingliang beat you half to death. If Mother Lin hadn't stopped him, fearing her son would go to jail, your brother-in-law would have beaten you to death. To avenge his sister, you nodded, without saying a word, picked up the bowl, tilted your head back, and downed the strong liquor in one gulp. The liquor was incredibly spicy, burning as it flowed down your throat, leaving a fiery sensation in your stomach. Lin Qingxue couldn't sit still anymore. She walked out holding the child, and yelled at you. Hey, are you going home or not? As soon as you heard your wife's words, you quickly put down the wine bowl, and a smile appeared on your handsome face. I'm not drinking anymore. This little bit of alcohol was nothing to you. But you were so happy, or perhaps the alcohol had hit you, that you felt a bit dizzy. When Lin Qingxue reached out to pull you, it revealed the faint dark purple bruise on her forearm. Lin Mingliang's attention was drawn to it, and his eyes instantly turned sharp. An indescribable anger surged in his heart. He abruptly stood up, smashed his wine bowl, grabbed you by the collar, and angrily questioned, What did you do to my sister? What's with the bruise on her arm? And you claimed you've changed for the better. I see a dog can't stop eating shit. Change my ass. You were caught off guard by this sudden questioning. Lin Mingliang, are you drunk? What crazy drunken fit is this? Your gaze fell on Qingxue's wrist, and it suddenly dawned on you. You hurriedly explained. You've misunderstood. You couldn't continue speaking at this point. You really were the one who caused the marks on her, but not in the way Lin Mingliang imagined. Your stammering manner only made Lin Mingliang more certain of his assumption. He refused to listen, only believing what he saw. His sister Lin Qingxue had always been delicate, and now she had such a bruise on her wrist. How could he not feel heartbroken? He swung a fist at you, cursing, you bastard. How dare you bully my sister? You were hit so hard you staggered a few steps, almost falling over. You clutched your aching cheek, but didn't fight back, only repeatedly saying, Brother, you really misunderstood. I didn't bully your... Seeing this, Lin Qingxue hurriedly stepped forward, grabbed her brother, and anxiously explained, Brother, you've really misunderstood. I accidentally gave myself this bruise. It has nothing to do with him. Stop hitting him. Sister, if you're being wronged, just say it. The worst that can happen is divorce. You can come back home. We can afford to feed you. Even if you can't remarry, it doesn't matter if you stay an old maid. Lin Qingxue was deeply moved, but he truly misunderstood this time. She could only blush and whisper a few words into Jia Xian's ear. Upon hearing this, Jia Xian looked at her in astonishment, and then, under her firm gaze, stood on her tiptoes and whispered something into Lin Mingliang's ear. After Lin Mingliang heard it, he looked at his sister and saw her nod at him. The words Jia Xian relayed didn't seem like a lie. Seeing this, he slowly let go of your collar. However, the anger in his heart hadn't completely dissipated. He was just forcing himself not to lash out again. Regarding Lin Mingliang's misunderstanding, you actually found it quite normal. You were a total jerk in your previous life, and had beaten Lin Qingxue quite often, so you didn't fight back at all. Lin Qingxue, looking at your bleeding mouth, also felt a pang of heartache. She knew her brother acted out of a desire to protect her, but she also knew you were innocent this time. She glared at you, thinking, if you hadn't been so rough, how could my brother have misunderstood? After whispering with Zhao Zhenguo for a while, Lin Minglong was still a bit skeptical. How could doing that leave such a bruise on her arm? But looking at his sister's shy appearance, it seemed to be true. Lin Minglong didn't want to apologize, and just said fiercely, if you ever dare to hit my sister, just you wait, I will treat Qingxue well, you assured him repeatedly after this incident. Lin Mingling's attitude towards you also improved somewhat. His brother-in-law was such a scoundrel before, that even dogs he had beaten would tuck their tails upon seeing him. He actually didn't fight back. Just looking at her submissively and feeling aggrieved on the way back, your mind felt quite exhilarated. You hunched your tall body, resting your chin on your wife's shoulder, constantly calling out wife. Fortunately, there were few pedestrians on the road, so Lin Qi didn't feel too embarrassed. She wondered why he was acting drunk again. In the past, after getting drunk, he would have immense strength. If the slightest thing didn't go his way, he would surely torment her. But now sticking close behind her, the man following her seemed very clingy. From time to time holding her hand and whispering in her ear, the smell of alcohol on his breath tickled her neck. Approaching the village, he stopped walking and said to her, let me hold Niu, so you can walk properly. Saying this, she adjusted her daughter in her arms. Having carried her all the way back, her arms were indeed a little sore. He had been wanting to hold her, but since he had been drinking, she didn't dare let him. Even though he was walking very steadily, it was pitch black and she didn't dare take the risk reprimanded by your wife. You straightened up and obediently followed behind her. The next day, you brought your things and prepared to go up the mountain. Your main purpose for going up today was to verify your guess. A few days ago, you picked a handful of wild celery to bring home for season, but found it couldn't be thrown into the space. You initially thought the space was broken, but storing other things worked normally. You didn't dare eat it, and took that handful of wild celery to the village clinic. The village doctor told you that it wasn't wild celery, but water hemlock, which looks very similar to wild celery. However, the entire water hemlock plant is poisonous if mistakenly eaten. It could cause a burning sensation in the mouth, swelling, severe diarrhea, and breathing difficulties. Severe cases could result in death within a dozen hours. You gave the village doctor 2 packs of cigarettes and a rabbit to repay him for saving your life. Before you left, the doctor secretly slipped you a copy of the Shenong Bensao Jing and said, absolutely do not eat things from the mountain indiscriminately. He also gave you a packet of homemade insect repellent powder. You suspected your space had the ability to identify poison. Walking on the lush path, you bent down from time to time, parting the grass to search, and soon found many wild mushrooms. Among them were some very tempting-looking shiitake mushrooms. You picked them and threw them into the space. And it was just as you guessed. Those colorful mushrooms that were clearly poisonous couldn't be stored in the space. This could be considered a secondary function of the space. Besides identifying poisonous plant, you also wanted to test it on animal. You nimbly shuttled through the mountain forest, every step cautious and agile. Whenever there was the rustling sound of leaves rubbing nearby, you reacted quickly, skillfully drawing your slingshot and loading a marble. With amazing speed and accuracy, it passed through the dense vegetation and struck those venomous snakes trying to hide in the shadows. Would instantly twist their bodies in pain when hit, and then become motionless. You tested it with snakes whose heads were chopped off and those whose heads were intact, and found that only after the venomous snake's head was chopped off could it be placed into the space. You picked up a pit viper, and with your fingertips you constantly pressed carefully along the venomous snake's abdomen for lumps. Then, you took a small knife out of your cloth bag, sliced open the snake's abdomen, found the gallbladder, tied the bile duct tightly, cut it off, and peeled off the outer membrane. You carefully put it away. Snake gallbladders and snake meat could be stored separately in the space. After processing these, you looked at the remaining snake bodies, wiping your hands with a handkerchief while thinking. You wondered if your wife ate snake meat. Snake meat is very delicious. So you decided to take it back and ask her first. If she didn't want to eat it, you could take it to the market to sell. Fortunately, you had the space. Otherwise, these snake gallbladders wouldn't be easy to preserve. You take a bottle of ergo from your spatial dimension, open it, and drop in over a dozen snake gallbladders. For fresh snake gallbladders, besides drying them for infusing in liquor, this is the best preservation method. Suddenly, 2 clear pheasant calls ring out from the nearby woods in the quiet mountain forest. They sound exceptionally loud. You just listen for a moment, and quickly pull out your slingshot and marbles from your waist. With whoosh, the marble traces a smooth trajectory through the night, like a shooting star streaking across the sky. It shoots out swiftly and accurately, before a pheasant hopping happily in the woods can even react. It is hit by the fast-flying marble. It instantly loses its vitality, and drops to the ground, unable to move. You quickly walk over and gently pick up this pheasant, still lodged with the marble. Chicken stewed with mushrooms is a perfect match. Wife, him back. You place the 2 baskets in the courtyard. Lin Qi takes a look and asks, good harvest today. As you wash your hands, you ask, Lin Qingxue, my dear wife, do you eat snake meat? Lin Qingxue glances at that large dark green patterned snake. Just looking at it makes her lose her appetite, let alone eating it. I won't eat it. Then, don't cook it. Seeing Lin reject it so flatly, you say, it's very nourishing. Sighing, you regretfully stuff the snake into the basket and cover it with grass, to prevent it from bothering your wife. After washing your hands, you take out the picked mushrooms and shiitake to dry them out in the sun. You also wash the wild vegetables, preparing some for cooking and the rest for pickling. You cook very quickly. And before long, you call Lin Qingxue over to eat. Zhenguo, how is this soup so delicious? Lin Qingxue asks curiously. This soup is made with wild vegetables and mushrooms from the mountain. I picked a lot of them. Seeing as winter is coming soon. Picking more now to dry out, so we can eat them as vegetables in the winter. It's really good. Lin Qingxue praises endlessly, picking up food with her chopsticks. As she speaks, she actually can't eat that much. Eating one flatbread and drinking one bowl of soup is enough for her. But you shouldn't just pick these things casually. Some of them are poisonous. If people who don't know them eat them by mistake, they could be poisoned to death. You remind her. Zhengguo. How do you know so much? Lin Qingxue was curiously. Probably the power of knowledge. Anyway, I can tell if it's poisonous just by looking at it. Lin Qingxue doesn't ask much more about it. She thinks you're great, much better than before. After finishing the meal and tidying up, you washed up, changed into clean clothes, and took Lin Qingxue to the wedding banquet. The groom at fourth uncle's house is your distant cousin's son. According to village customs, the bride officially arrives tomorrow. But tonight they are hosting close relatives for a meal. Men sit at a separate table to drink, while women eat and chat at another table. At this time, fourth aunt walks over to the women's table holding a jar. This is our homemade fruit wine. It's not very strong, so it won't get you drunk. Everyone, have a little. As she speaks, she smiles teasingly. Zhengguo is really something. He spoils his wife so much. He's afraid you'll suffer even a little. Fourth aunt takes the lead in picking up the bowl in front of Lin Qingxue and pours her a bowl. Drink up, sweet, not strong. Lin Qingxue looks at the fruit wine in the bowl, picks it up, and smells it. It has a faint fragrance. She takes a sip, although it's not very sweet, and even a bit tart. The taste is indeed not bad. It doesn't have a strong burning sensation going down. Instead, it tastes somewhat like soda. At this time, the Wang family daughter-in-law beside her emboldens herself and leans into Lin Qingxue's ear. She whispers, Qingxue, keep a close eye on your man. Look at Zhang Hui over there. A perfectly fine girl. Instead of sitting with the women, she went to the men's table and sat right next to Zhenguo. What a shameless flirt. Lin Qingxue followed her gaze. Out of the corner of her eye, she glanced at the men's table not far away, and saw Zhang Hui shyly pouring drinks for each man there. She looked just like a fawning lapdog. She withdrew her gaze, and smiled at the Wang family's daughter-in-law beside her, without saying a word, seeing her unfazed. The Wang family's daughter-in-law felt that she seemed different today. Heaven knows that when Lin Qingxue saw him bringing her to the wedding, she was scared out of her wits. She was terrified that if any of the guests today said something wrong, it would provoke you into causing a scene. The Wang family's two daughters-in-law hadn't dared to leave their houses lately, their faces swollen like pigheads. Rumor has it they gossiped about Lin Qingxue, and got beaten up badly by Zhao Zhenguo. Looking closely at Lin Qingxue, her face was beautiful like a flower, with fair skin that looked tender enough to yield water, and a figure that was beyond words. Sitting nearby, she could even catch a faint, pleasant fragrance, let alone men. Even as a woman herself, she couldn't tear her eyes away. She couldn't help but wonder. They were both women. So how was she born so beautiful? Noticing the Wang family's daughter-in-law's gaze, Lin Qingxue picked up her fruit wine and said, Sister-in-law Wang, let's have a drink. The Wang family's daughter-in-law, hearing herself called sister-in-law, bloomed with joy on her honest dark face. She raised her fruit wine and drank with her. Sister, if you need anything in the future, just tell me. Though I only married into this village a year before you. Been very familiar with things around here. The women at the table, seeing how nice the city bride Lin Qingxue was, couldn't help but relax their tone. They were no longer as reserved as before, and occasionally, they would chat with her. Meanwhile, at the men's table, Zhang Hui sitting next to you, intentionally rubbed her leg against yours under the table from time to time. After dodging her, you didn't even spare her a glance. She didn't believe you had no feelings for her at all. Zhang Hui deliberately drank a little wine and pretended to be dizzy, leaning against you as if she couldn't help it. Although you seamlessly dodged her every time, the more you acted this way, the more unwilling she was to give up. When the banquet was over, seeing this, and how Zhang Hui was clinging to you, the Wang family's daughter-in-law shouted out, Zhengguo, come quickly. Your wife seems to be drunk. Hearing her words, you stood up and strode over. Reaching out, you took her from the Wang family's daughter-in-law, wrapping one arm around her slender waist. You glanced at the wine jug on the table, and asked, did she drink? The Wang family's daughter-in-law cheerfully said, she only had a little of fourth aunt's homemade fruit wine. Who knew she could get drunk on that? At this moment, Body leaned limply against your chest. Her slender and beautiful phoenix eye were clouded with a drunken, bewildering hate. On her flushed and dewy face, her moist and rosy lips parted slightly as she mumbled to you, hug me, as she Lotus white slender arms wrapped around your lean waist. That didn't have a single ounce of fat. Her actions made the conservative women nearby turn their heads in embarrassment. You didn't expect your wife to get drunk and look so adorably cute. Disregarding everything else, you scooped up the drunken woman by the waist, and taking steady strides, walked out of fourth uncle's house. You originally wanted to go to your sister-in-law's house to pick up your child, but seeing that your wife was this drunk, you had to give up on that idea. All along the way, Lin Qingxue was particularly restless in your arms. Her fair little hands grabbed at you, fumbling blindly and even tearing off a button on your white collar shirt. You almost couldn't resist taking her right there in the wild, and had to hold back repeatedly. Luckily, it was night, and pitch dark, so there was no one on the road. Carrying her into the house, you strode to the bedroom, bent down, and gently placed her on the bed. Afterward, you squatted in the yard to keep watch, took a cigarette from your pocket, lit it, and holding it in your mouth, you tilted your head back, and took a deep drag. Building a new house was truly an urgent matter now. The next day, Lin Qingxue was awakened by the sound of firecracker. With sleepy, hazy eyes, she propped herself up, sat, and leaned limply against the headboard, remembering she had some wine at fourth uncle's house last night. Because I thought the fruit wine tasted good, I got greedy and drank a bit too much, and I don't really remember what happened after. Outside the bedroom, you heard the noise inside and came to the door. Wife, are you awake? King Shang's new bride is almost in the village. Get dressed, and it'll take you to see. Inside the bedroom, Lin Qingxue, dressed in her new clothes, lifted the curtain and walked out. She asked you, what about the baby? It's not good to keep bothering sister-in-law. It's fine, sister-in-law said. She doesn't like crowds. Well, go pick her up later. She happily went to the yard, freshened up a bit, and followed you to join the fun. Right now, at Qingshang's courtyard, people were bustling inside and out. As soon as you arrived, Zhang Huihui spotted you. At over 1.8 meters tall, you stood out from the crowd. Lin Qiu still felt a bit shy, but you weren't shy at all. You grabbed Lin Qingxue's arm and made her link arms with you. What's wrong with my wife linking arms with me? You turned your head and glanced at the person linking your arm, then looked away and said, from now on, you're not allowed to drink with anyone else. Your magnetic voice carried unquestionable seriousness. Hearing her man's words, Lin Qingxue looked up. So she nonchalantly looked up at her man beside her. When she saw your open collar, revealing unconcealable bite mark and faint, unhealed scratch marks, she spaced out for a moment. Could she have done that while drunk last night? Thinking about how she wore your clothes this morning, she thought she had grown thicker-skinned than before. But she still felt her cheeks flush hotly in shame. You lowered your gaze and saw those fair cheeks, tinged with red, wondering to yourself, is she blushing? Lin Qingxue met her husband's questioning gaze, glared at him crossly. What are you looking at? Looking at? Then she gave you a hard pinch on the waist and said unapologetically, you can only look at me. Hearing this and seeing her like this, the corners of your thin, shapely lips curved into an exaggerated smile. Then she glanced at the new clothes she was wearing, looked away, and watched the newlywed couple complete their ceremony. Every move the two of you made was caught by Zhang Hu's eyes not far away. At this moment, she felt incredibly uncomfortable inside, feeling that everything Lin Qingxue had now should have originally been hers. She regretted it. She regretted listening to her family back then, saying that you were just a useless punk, and giving up on relentlessly pursuing you, no matter what. She couldn't give up on such a good man like Brother Zhenguo, whether in terms of looks or capability. Brother Zhenguo was far better than the blind date she was seeing now. No matter what, she had to win Brother Zhenguo back. With Brother Zhenguo's abilities, having meat every day, and wearing new clothes wouldn't be a problem for her. Thinking of this, Zhang Huihui adjusted her clothes with one hand, smoothed her ponytail, walked through the crowd, and came to the couple. With a tender gaze she said, Brother Zhenguo, have some soda. Saying that, she offered the soda bottle in her hand to you. With one hand in your pocket, and your other arm linked with the person beside you, you looked at Zhang Huihui indifferently, and said, you drink it. I'm not thirsty. At this time someone started cheering to tease the groom. At the critical moment, the groom pushed the bride out of the cheering crowd, and some young unmarried teenagers instantly erupted in excitement. For a moment, the courtyard was chaotic. Seeing this, you reached out and tightly shielded the person next to you in your arms, avoiding the crowd's bumps and carefully escorting her out of the rowdy throng. After getting out, your deep eyes looked her over, asking, did anyone bump into you? Seeing her shake her head, you looked away and took her fair jade-like hand to go home. However, at this moment, Zhang Hui couldn't get out of the crowd. She felt several hands taking advantage of the chaos to grope her all over. As an unmarried woman, she was frightened and felt deeply humiliated. She wanted to cry out, but someone pushed her back in. During this time, someone tore open the buttons on her chest, exposing her white camisole as she anxiously covered her chest. With teary eyes, she didn't know what to do. She tried to find the man she longed for in the crowd, only to realize he was leaving, protectively holding Lin Qingxue. She felt crushed and couldn't help but shout, Brother Zhenguo, I'm still here, but the crowd drowned out her cries. Lin Qingxue's eyes were glued entirely to her man, seeing his sharp, handsome features. It was no wonder Zhang Hui was so eager to become her daughter's stepmother. Because she wasn't looking at the road, she tripped and stumbled forward. Seeing this, you quickly reached out your long arm, hooked her slender waist, and pulled her entirely into your arms. Frowning, you said coldly, watch your step, pressed against that solid, broad chest. Lin Qingxue finally breathed a sigh of relief. Glad she didn't fall flat on her face, she completely ignored her man's words. As they walked side by side, arm in arm, her gaze was still glued to him. Meanwhile, after the crowd finished teasing the groom at Qingshang's house and dispersed, Zhang Hui's clothes were torn to shreds. Because there were too many people present at the time, no one admitted to taking advantage of the chaos to grope her. Even though Zhang Huihui was sobbing uncontrollably, none of the onlookers stepped forward to speak up for her. It wasn't until Zhang Huihui's mother heard the news and rushed over, cursing loudly, that she was finally taken back home. This incident quickly spread throughout the village and somehow reached Zhang Hui's fiancé. After hearing about it, he didn't stand up for her, but instead immediately called off the engagement. This matter became the main subject of gossip in the village. Months later, on the day the roof beam was placed on the new house, more than half the village showed up. You stood on the ladder and personally placed the final main beam securely. Firecrackers cracked, blasting red confetti that fell like petals onto the newly built brick walls. The two-story house gleamed with a brand new luster under the autumn sun. Its glass windows shining brightly, it was the very first in Zhao Zhenguo, standing in the courtyard, holding your daughter in your arms. Your eyes kept searching the crowd for Lin Qingxue, wearing a red sweater. She stood by the stove serving food to the helpers, a steaming pot stewing the game you hunted. Her hair stuck to her forehead, damp with sweat. She was so busy that fine sweat beaded on her forehead, and her cheeks were flushed. From time to time she would look up at you, but would quickly look away as soon as your eyes met. Lin Qingxue carried her bowl and approached Lin Qingxue. She whispered, "Sister-in-law, look at big brother." His eyes seemed glued to you. Lin Qingxue didn't say a word, but the tips of her ears turned red. After dark, the helpers gradually dispersed. The new house hadn't fully dried yet, so the family of three still slept in the east room of the old house. Your daughter was fast asleep in her little bed. You lay on the Kang bed, and by the moonlight streaming through the window, you looked at the person curled up in your arms. Lin Qingxue rested her head on your arm, breathing softly, her body still radiating the warmth of a hard day's work. You lowered your head and kissed the top of her hair. A soft kiss. She didn't wake up, but just nestled closer into your arms. With open eyes you stared at the soot-blackened roof beam and recalled your past life. At this time back then you were probably lying drunk on a gambling table, having lost your last penny, completely oblivious to the fact that your wife and child were starving at home. But now the person in your arms was real, warm, and breathing evenly. You suddenly felt that your luck in this life was worth more than all the money you made in your previous life combined. Early the next morning, before the sky was fully light, you got up. In the kitchen, you thinly sliced the leftover wild boar meat from yesterday, beat 2 eggs, and steamed a bowl of egg custard. When Lin Qingxue came out holding the baby, it was already set on the table. After eating breakfast, Yim heading to the site, you put a piece of meat in her bowl. There's still a bit of a balance to settle at the brickyard, and I'll see if I can get some good lumber while I'm there, to make some decent furniture. Lin Qingxue nodded, keeping her head down and eating in silence. Looking at her like that, you knew she was reluctant to see you go but too shy to say it. So you reached out and gave her cheek a gentle pinch. "I'll be back before dark." Lin Qingxue looked up and glared at you, but she didn't pull away. After you left, Lin Qingxue wandered around the yard holding the baby. The windows of the new house didn't have glass yet, covered temporarily with plastic sheets to block the wind. She stood in front of them, looking inside through the thin layer of plastic. The empty rooms were no longer dark and grimy like before. They had snow-white walls and smooth cement floors, and the sunlight streaming through the windows made everything bright. She suddenly remembered when she had just married into the family. That year they lived in this old house. It was drafty in winter, and leaky in summer. She would curl up at the edge of the heated brick bed, listening to you drunkenly kicking the door, trembling all over with fear. Back then she thought her life would always be like that, suffering day by day, and if she couldn't bear it anymore she would just end it. But now she looked down at the sleeping daughter in her arms, and then looked at those 2 brand new gray brick houses, feeling like she was in a dream. In the evening, you rode back on your newly bought 28-inch bicycle, with a bundle of lumber tied to the back seat, and a bag of brown sugar hanging from the handlebars. As you entered the yard, Lin Qingxue was sitting in the sunset with the baby in her arms. The red sweater she wore was warmly dyed by the afterglow. You parked the bike, walked over, and took the baby from her. With your other hand, you held hers and walked toward the new house. "Let's go inside and take a look." Pushing open the wooden door of the new house, it was mostly tidied up inside. A newly made 8 immortals table sat in the main room, which you had asked someone to buy from town. Ready-made. The heated bed in the inner room was also built, spread with the new mattress you brought back from the county town. Lin Qingxue stood at the doorway of the inner room, looking at the window pasted with white paper, and suddenly remembering something, she softly said, "If only we had days like this sooner." You didn't let her finish. Hugging her from behind and resting your chin on her shoulder, "It will always be like this from now on." The daughter in your arms woke up, opened her bright black eyes, and babbled while stretching out her little hands. Lin Qingxue looked down at her, her lips slowly curling into a smile. Outside the window, the sky had completely darkened. In the distance, someone's house lit a lamp, and the dim yellow light shone through the white paper windows, flickering like stars. Dog in the village barked a couple of times, and then fell quiet again. You held your wife and child in your arms, listening to their breathing, and suddenly felt incredibly at peace in your heart. In your past life you had everything, but you lost them. In this life you didn't need anything else. Having them was enough. Footsteps came from outside the door. Lin Qingxue had returned from next door, cautiously knocking on the main room's door. "Brother, sister-in-law, beam back." Lin Qingxue broke free from your embrace, blushing as she went to open the door. You stood there looking at her back, and suddenly called out, "Wife." She turned around and looked at you in confusion. You smiled and didn't say anything. She gave you a playful glare, and turned back to greet Tiantian. You stood by the new house's window holding your daughter, looking out at the pitch-black night. Your daughter babbled, her little paws grabbing your face. You looked down and kissed her soft little cheek, and softly said, "New. Our good days have only just begun."